A naked man walked out of the curtain and casually put on a coat as he looked into the distance and murmured to himself, "A few months later will be Master's death anniversary. When I break through into the Nine Heavens realm, I'll definitely go to the Tiandang Mountains to find out the truth." The man looked back at the bed in distaste. Through the opening between the curtains, he could see a tempting scene, but he just said faintly, "I've lost my appetite today. If any of you still want some more, go get yourself a few cucumbers in the kitchen." As soon as he had finished speaking, he vanished from the bedroom. At the bottom of the South Sea, Xianxia was immersed in the pleasure of rapid energy growth. He had never been so extravagant before, even in his previous life. A few days later, the primordial qi accumulated in his body became restless again, and there was a faint sign of breaking through to the 4 stars level. I was wondering why the spirit qi in the divine tree gradually became unstable. "So, you are the culprits." A figure suddenly appeared in the cavity and glanced coldly at them as he said, "Give me the diagram of this array and I'll leave each of you a whole body." Startled, the group flicked open their eyes. Divine senses could be blocked inside this Kunwu divine tree. Therefore, none of them noticed when this person came in. "Da Meng!" The Firefish clan chief cried out in horror. You have become a martial emperor." Da Meng was the chief of the Razor Clam clan. He gazed coldly at the Firefish clan chief and said, "Tai Pin, give me the diagram of this array if you are wise. For the sake that you are a martial emperor as well, I can pardon the crimes your Firefish clan has committed. But, from now on, you will surrender to my Razorcom clan and listen to our orders." The Firefish clan chief, Tai Pin, flew into a rage and said, "You robbers have destroyed the divine tree to such an extent. We, the Firefish clan, are at daggers drawn with you. Humph! Precious plants and minerals can only be possessed by capable people. This divine tree was with you for over 10,000 years, and yet your Firefish clan is only a degrade clan now. What a shame! Although we have only possessed it for not too long, the strength of my whole clan has improved by leaps and bounds. When I came from the East Sea, I was just a 9 stars martial grandmaster, and it is because of this divine tree that I could advance to a 2 stars martial emperor. How I hate myself!" Tai Pin gnashed his teeth. If he had been willing to fight the Razor Clam clan, he might have won. Now, the foe had advanced to a 2 stars martial emperor and was in the prime of life. He, on the other hand, was just an old and dying 1-star martial emperor. He had no chance of winning. Suddenly, Yunxiao's voice transmission rang in his ear. "Lord Clan Chief, hold him off as long as you can. Tai Fan has reached the threshold of breakthrough. And as long as he can break through, you two can join hands and there will still be hope." Tai Pin was astonished, and he turned to give Tai Fan a glance. Tai Fan's forehead was beaded with sweat, and he was evidently struggling at the threshold, with an expression of anguish on his face. Meanwhile, both Tai Bai and Tai Xian had broken through to the 9 stars martial grandmaster's realm. Although they were at the early stages, their energy levels were clearly rising. The clan chief immediately felt a huge sense of responsibility. The hope for the future of the Firefish clan rested on these people, and he must protect them even if he were crushed to pieces today. "Da Meng, if you want the diagram, you have to step over my dead body." Tai Pin stood up abruptly and rushed out of the cavity. "If you have the guts, come out and fight me." Glancing coldly at Tai Fan and the others, Da Meng sneered, "Are you trying to buy some time? Even if this lad breaks through and becomes a martial emperor, he still has to die. But, since you refuse to come to your senses, I'll teach you a lesson that will never be forgotten by the Firefish clan." He suddenly glanced at Yunxiao and Duanyu as he snorted and said, "I can't believe that you have colluded with human beings. The man who intruded here a few days ago should be your partner, right?" When he had finished, he swam slowly out of the cavity while staring sardonically at Tai Pin. That stirred Yunxiao, and he exchanged a look with Duanyu. Both of them knew that the man Da Meng mentioned should be Hung Yuan. Yunxiao did not expect him to have entered the Kunwu Divine Tree as well. That fellow was a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster. So, after staying in this divine tree for a few days, he was likely to have stepped into the realm of martial emperors. There was a tremendous rumble outside the cavity. The two clan chiefs had begun to fight. Although Tai Pin was old and 1 star lower in cultivation base, he was determined to protect the future hope of the Firefish clan. As soon as the fight began, he burned his life, giving his every attack a power beyond his limit, which had gained him an upper hand. Tai Fei had now advanced to the level of 6 stars. Sensing the energy fluctuation outside the cavity, he said excitedly, "Lord Clan Chief is so strong. I can't believe he is suppressing a 2 stars martial emperor." Tai Ling, on the other hand, said with a worried look, "Is my dad gonna be all right?" Yun Xiao frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "What are you doing? I want you to focus on improving your strength as much as possible. The Lord Clan Chief is fighting out there with his life to buy us more time." Yun Xiao knew Tai Pin's current condition. The more power he brought his power out, the faster his lifespan was consumed. He could not hold on for too long. Tai Fan understood this as well, and he was panicked, causing his primordial chi to push even fiercer in his body. He knew that if he could not break through, he would be no match for Demeng with the strength of a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster. Relax your mind and guide the chi back to the primordial. When the mind is blank, the demons vanish and success comes naturally. Yun Xiao's voice rang beside Tai Fan's ear like a stream of spirit spring water, which made him feel suddenly enlightened. He cleared his mind at once and remained calm, and his aura began to immediately experience a series of changes. At that moment, the spirit chi crazily absorbed by the 1 chi of destiny array seemed to have been swallowed by him, and his body seemed to have turned into a bottomless black hole. The scene made Duan Yu stare at Yun Xiao in shock. He actually guided a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster to break through? This is something that cannot be done even if he is several realms stronger than Tai Fan. And yet, he did it so casually as if he were teaching his student. Yun Xiao smiled as he looked at Tai Fan. Then, he closed his eyes and began to break through for the level of 4 stars realm. Throughout the heavenly martial continent, there were very few people who could surpass him in the understanding of martial arts. He had extremely profound insight for the breakthrough of every realm, and this was the reason why he could break through directly as long as he had accumulated enough primordial chi. Rumble! A muffled explosion rang out of Tai Fan's body, and his temperament changed dramatically in that instant. Tai Xian and Tai Bai looked at each other in horror. Their eyes filled with shock and great joy while their faces flickered with a trace of fear. The aura that exploded out of Tai Fan's body made them feel a great fear and pressure. "Thank you," Tai Fan said gratefully and then disappeared from the cavity. Apart from astonishment, Tai Ling and the others were filled with great joy. But, when they saw Yun Xiao remain calm and still pushing for a higher level, they quieted down instantly and worked hard to absorb the incredible spirit chi. They knew that this kind of opportunity might never come again in their lifetime, and every additional second they spent in absorbing it was of great benefit to them. The fighting outside was extremely fierce, but it could not affect those inside. Yun Xiao smoothly broke through to the level of 4 stars. He opened his eyes slightly, and instead of being happy, he looked extremely worried. "Get ready to go, everybody. I'm afraid Clan Chief and Tai Fan cannot last much longer, and the fighting has produced too much noise, which may have already alerted the other razor clams." Tai Ling said worriedly, "Your Excellency, are my dad and brother Tai Fan all right?" Suddenly, a voice said faintly, "Continue your cultivation. I'll take care of the rest." That startled everyone, and then they saw Duan Yu's eyes gleam as he gave Yun Xiao a grateful look while taking a step to leave the cavity. Yun Xiao's eyes flickered, and he murmured under his breath in great joy, "He is indeed a martial emperor." Outside the cavity, Tai Pin and Tai Fan were covered in blood, panting violently as they stared at Demeng. Their eyes were full of hatred and killing intent, and although they were seriously wounded, their fighting will was stronger than ever. The branches of the divine tree around them had been destroyed, leaving an open area of more than 100 meters diameter, while the seawater was full of broken branches and tree sap. Although Demeng looked messy as well, he was unhurt. His eyes burned with killing intent as he said coldly, "Initially, I intended to spare your clan and make you my clan's servant. But, Since you are so ignorant, you all can go die now. A silvery light appeared in his palms, swirling around them like a Milky Way while giving off a terrible aura. It is you who will die. Suddenly, a voice rang out behind him. Taken aback, Demeng turned around abruptly and saw a bare-chested man floating quietly behind him with a round seal printed on his chest like 3 little tadpoles joined end to end, which looked extremely bizarre. You and what army? A 7 stars martial grandmaster. Demeng sneered, but there was somehow a faint feeling of uneasiness in his heart. Duanyu slowly looked up as he held up his fingers like a sword and cried out, "Open!" The tails of the 3 little tadpoles on his chest immediately retracted, leaving only 3 black dots behind. A powerful aura began to emerge from Duanyu's body, climbing steadily under his ice-cold glance. 8 stars martial grandmaster. 9 stars martial grandmaster. Demeng was struck dumb as he muttered. The man's aura had directly increased by 2 levels, and it was still rising explosively. Peak 9 stars. This is Martial Emperor. Roar. Duanyu threw his head back and roared like a wild beast. It seemed that he had been depressed for too long, and after returning to the realm of martial emperors, his emotions over the years suddenly burst out. Impacted by that, a line of vacuum broke across the nearby seawater. Not only Demeng, but even Tai Pin and Tai Fan were shocked. Duanyu's aura did not stop after he had advanced to the realm of martial emperors, but continued to rise. 1-star martial emperor. Peak 1-star martial emperor. Impossible! Demeng was taken aback. The man's aura stuck at the peak of a 1-star martial emperor, but power continued to explode out of him, and there was a vague feeling that he was about to break through. Rumble. The repressed energy finally rushed up the last threshold. After the moment of violence, the whole seabed quieted down. I finally returned to the peak and even broke through directly. Duanyu sensed quietly as the energy flowed inside him, and he seemed unable to believe what just happened. The seal that had suppressed him for so many years was finally opened for a short time, and his strength not only did not regress, but went up by another level. Heavenly halberd! He cried out lightly and reached out a hand. A beam of light immediately stretched out in his palm, materializing into the ancient halberd that began to spin as soon as it appeared, twisting and distorting the calm seawater. Damn it! Demeng's nostrils flared as he roared. Where did this human bastard come from? Even though you have broken through and become a 2-stars martial emperor, your cultivation base is not yet stabilized, so you won't be my match. The Milky Way in his hand burst into bloom in an instant, spreading out and pouring down from the distance like a great river. The sophisticated Milky Way, the heavenly sea fiend flash. A silver light lit up the bottom of the sea like daylight and engulfed Duanyu. Both Tai Pin and Tai Fan were taken aback, their eyes stinging, and they could hardly open them. Humph! What an insignificant skill. The white scorching flame. Burn the sky and destroy the devil. A mass of white cold flame suddenly appeared in the Milky Way. Nourished by the powerful energy, it gradually spread out and ignited the whole Milky Way, turning it into a sea of white flames. Demeng went pale with fright and hastily pushed his hands forward. The white Milky Way left his palms instantly and burned into ashes. Meanwhile, Duanyu's cold face quietly appeared amid the flames, looking mockingly at him. Impossible! You are just a lowly human being, and this is in the middle of the sea. Even though we are both 2-stars martial emperors, I should be stronger than you. Demeng was filled with anger and shock. The white flame gave him a very dangerous feeling, and he believed that even he could not resist it if he were to touch it. Putting 2 fingers into his mouth, he suddenly blew a long whistle. Not good. He's calling for reinforcements. Kill him now. Tai Pin cried out. Ha! There are a lot of my people around here, and 5 to 6 are martial emperors among them. No matter how strong you are, you will surely die. Demeng sneered in a loud voice. Humph! No matter how much rubbish you call over, they are just rubbish. Duanyu sneered disdainfully. Since you think you have more advantages in the sea, what about now? He opened his mouth abruptly, from which came spewing out streams of primordial chi, rapidly pushing away seawater and creating a vacuum area at the bottom of the sea, with Demeng, Tai Pin, and Tai Fan inside. Soon, the four of them hovered in the waterless mid-air, which looked like a giant air bubble from afar. "You fucking human!" Demeng cursed in horror and hurried toward the seawater in the distance. He was already no match for this man in the water, and with both of them exposed in the air now, he would make for an easy target to be slain. White Flame Ghost Kill, the 6th-tier halberd. Duan Yu's eyes gleamed with killing intent as the halberd in his hand pierced through the air. Fingers of white flames swirled around the halberd like auspicious clouds, and wherever the weapon passed, the surroundings turned bright like daylight. "Ah, bastard, you can't kill me. I won't die. How can you kill me?" Targeted by the heavenly halberd, Demeng felt a sense of death well up in his heart. He had even seen the reinforcements rushing over in the distance, but it was too late. Boom! The halberd directly smashed Demeng into pieces while the surrounding seawater lost the supporting force and crushed down toward the center in an instant. Powerful currents washed away pieces of Demeng. The great force impacted Tai Pin and Tai Fan as well and made them sway as both of them stared incredulously at Duan Yu, who looked like a god of war. Before the dozens of razor clams in the distance could approach, they were rolled up by the currents and pushed farther away. They were all low-level razor clams, and the strongest one was just a martial king. Suddenly, Yunxiao swam out of the cavity and sped toward a direction. "Kill as many razor clams as you can. You don't have to worry about me." That gave Duan Yu a pause. He did not understand why Yunxiao would suddenly say that, because he did not seem like a murderous man, judging from his usual behavior. But since he had said that, Duan Yu's cold eyes immediately fell on the dozens of razor clams, who still could not figure out the situation. Tai Pin and Tai Fan, on the other hand, did not think so much, as Yunxiao's order was what they wanted to do. There was a wild look of revenge in their eyes. With a serious face, Yunxiao sped through the bottom of the sea. Along the way, whenever he came across branches of the divine tree, he broke them with his palms. He seemed to be tracking something. Soon, he had swum for miles, and the branches became denser and denser. He simply took out his tiger tooth and cut through a way for himself. At last, he came to an extremely spacious cavity. The most eye-catching thing inside was a huge piece of wood erected directly from the seabed. The huge wood's color was slightly different from that of the Kunwu divine tree branches, showing a light brown color. "Ha ha! There it is!" Yunxiao burst into laughter as he looked at the huge piece of wood. What a huge soul-nourishing wood. It's not fully formed, but after taking it down and refining it, it should be enough for Mengwu. I'll just wait a little longer and let Duan Yu and the others kill all the razor clams. The effect of this piece of divine wood will be better after it has absorbed their souls. Just now, he had sensed the direction in which Demeng's soul was flying, and he followed it, which eventually led him to the core of the Kunwu divine tree. The wood should have evolved after absorbing wandering souls for tens of thousands of years here, but due to its overly huge size, it had become a half-baked existence in front of him now. After waiting for tens of thousands of years, did I finally get the chance? Just as Yunxiao was complacent about himself, an old voice rang out in the cavity and startled him. He spread out his divine sense in horror, but he found nothing. Knowing that it was an existence that could hide from his divine sense, he felt a chill run down his back. "Ho-ho, don't be scared." The voice rang out again. Yunxiao found the direction this time. He squinted over and saw that the voice was actually coming from the half-baked soul-nourishing wood. In his astonished eyes, an old figure gradually emerged over the wood and smiled at him. "You are..." Yunxiao looked at the figure shockingly and said in horror, "You are the tree spirit of this Kunwu divine tree." The old figure's face was full of astonishment as well, and it was evident that he was a little taken aback. Staring at Yunxiao, he said amazedly, "What a strange boy! You are not strong, but your soul power is so pure that you don't look like a teenager. In fact, I feel like you are at least 100 years old." Yunxiao was startled, and his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. This tree spirit was the first one to discover the secrets of his soul. No wonder the soul nourishing wood has not been fully formed after tens of thousands of years. It turns out that all the wandering souls had been absorbed by you. Suddenly, he felt a chill rise from the bottom of his heart, and he said, You're not trying to devour my soul, are you? The tree spirit froze, and he burst into laughter in the next instant. Ha ha, you don't have to worry. I can only absorb the unconscious souls of those dead creatures. I can't take your soul unless you die. Besides, I need your help. You need my help? Xianxia frowned. Do you want me to not take this soul-nourishing wood? I'm sorry, but I can't do that. My friend is waiting for it to save her life. Ho ho, the tree spirit laughed and said, If it were anyone else, I might say so, but not to you, because after meeting you, I don't even need this soul-nourishing wood. And look at my body, it's been damaged beyond repair by these people, and your damnable array has drained almost all of my spirit chi. Even with this soul-nourishing wood, I won't live for long. Xianxia's expression suddenly changed slightly. With a trace of killing intent flashing in his eyes, he clutched the tiger tooth more tightly and snapped, Are you going to take my body from me? Your body. The tree spirit paused for a moment, and then he showed a disdainful look as he snorted. You human beings always think how wonderful your bodies are, but in my eyes, only the body of a big tree is the most wonderful existence in the world. Although your body is somewhat amazing, it is nowhere near as good as those higher-level sea people. I want you to help me be reborn from the ashes. Reborn from the ashes? That surprised Xianxia. You mean, let the phoenix true flame in the depths of my soul help you rise from the ashes? He sighed and said, I'm sorry, but I don't know how to do that. Besides, I can't control that phoenix true flame, and I don't want to accidentally burn myself to ashes. Ho ho, don't you worry, boy. It's an opportunity for you as well. As long as you have my help, you won't face any problem in controlling this phoenix flame. Don't forget, I've seen a real phoenix rise from the ashes. The tree spirit chuckled softly and said, If you will help me, I promise to teach you how to subdue this phoenix flame. I think I don't have to tell you the benefits of this, right? Also, I can pour all the remaining spirit chi in this body into your body before I enter nirvana. You may directly break through to the realm of martial lords. These are the two benefits if you will help me. Consider them wisely. Xianxia was shocked. Whether it was controlling the phoenix flame or breaking through to the realm of martial lords, it was a great temptation for him. He considered a moment and then asked, Am I going to have any discomfort in the process of helping you rise from the ashes? The tree spirit laughed. You are really a cautious boy. Rest assured you will rise from the ashes with me, and this is only of great benefit to you. If I read you right, you should have practiced a kind of tyrannical body tempering technique. After rising from the ashes, your cultivation of the technique can reach at least a higher level. Xianxia was rendered speechless. This tree spirit's eyes were too keen, which could even read what kind of body tempering technique he practiced. The tyrant body tempering technique was divided into 3 levels. If he could reach a higher level, the strength of his fleshly body would increase by several fold, and this was no doubt another great temptation. He smiled wryly and said, How can I refuse when you have offered me so much? Ho ho! The tree spirit laughed and said, I knew you'd have a hard time saying no. There's one more thing I need your help with. That is, after I rise from the ashes, I will return to my original seedling state and fall into a deep sleep. I hope you can bring me with you, find an uninhabited place that is full of spirit chi, and plant me there. Be sure to find a safe place. As if afraid of Xianxia not keeping his word, the tree spirit said again, As long as you do this for me, I'll give you a heaven-defying benefit when I wake up. What heaven-defying benefit? Don't fool me. By that time, you will have nothing valuable with you. Or, do you want to let me eat you? Xianxia said disdainfully, but his eyes shone with greed, as if he had just seen a piece of fat meat. If this divine tree could rise from the ashes, it would definitely be something extremely nourishing. That frightened the tree spirit, and he hurriedly said, Don't you think about that. If you can protect me until I am safely awake, I can transfer a wisp of great primal chi to you. What? Yunxiao's eyelids twitched violently as he said in shock, Great primal qi. You can actually cultivate great primal qi? The tree spirit said proudly, The only wisp of great primal qi I owned had been refined into my intrinsic qi. If I can be reborn from the ashes, I can cultivate the second wisp, and the third wisp. I can give you a wisp as a token of my gratitude. Is this a viable deal? Yes. Of course, it is viable. Yunxiao nodded repeatedly and agreed to the deal. Great primal qi was conceived in chaos when the heaven and earth were just born and the yin and yang was yet to split. After that, the Tao turned into the one which split into the yin and yang. Later, the universe and all things, including earth, water, fire, and wind, were evolved from the great primal qi. If he could obtain a wisp, his odds of stepping into the divine realm would become greater. Moreover, he also knew that only those ancient true spirits who had disappeared could conceive the great primal qi. This Kunwu divine tree must have been influenced by the phoenix, and with tens of thousands of years of cultivation, he was able to produce a wisp of great primal qi. In that case, let's delay no more. The tree spirit said nervously, I'll now teach you the technique of controlling the phoenix true flame. A strange text emerged in Yunxiao's mind, consisting entirely of ancient golden tadpole-like writing. If he had not done some research on this kind of writing before, he would not have understood it right now. Yunxiao was silent for a moment. How is it? Can you master it? Or, is there anything you don't understand? Asked the tree spirit. Yunxiao frowned and said, There is nothing I don't understand. But, if I trigger the phoenix true flame according to this technique, even I can't control it at the later stage. Would I be dragged into it as well? Overcautious and indecisive. Why are you so afraid of death? If you die, I will be devoured by some sea monsters after I rise from the ashes. The tree spirit said impatiently, Just for the sake of myself alone, I won't harm you. In that case, I'll give it a try. But I need to put away this soul-nourishing wood first. He grabbed Tiger Tooth and slashed it out a few times. The huge wood fell with a crash, and was grabbed by him before being pulled into his storage ring. At that moment, the tree spirit began to perform incantation gestures with both hands, mustering the tremendous amount of heaven and earth spirit qi in his true form and crazily pouring it into Yunxiao's body. Yunxiao sat cross-legged down with both hands flashing with complicated incantation gestures. His aura kept climbing as the spirit qi poured into his body. Soon, the flaming cloud symbol appeared between his eyebrows and began to burn, as if it were about to leave his body. At that moment, his hands slowed down, as if the incantation gestures had entered an extremely complicated stage, and he had to ponder for a while before forming each seal. A while later, an ancient, unfathomable symbol was formed in his hands, gradually floating up in seawater. Very soon, another appeared. About 10 minutes later, a total of 9 different tadpole-like characters surrounded Yunxiao and kept spinning. The tree spirit watched nervously as Yunxiao performed incantation gestures, and his heart raced when those ancient characters began to appear. It was not until all 9 tadpole-like characters took shape that he breathed a sigh of relief and showed a look of great joy. His hands moved faster, and the speed at which he drained spirit qi was even faster than Yunxiao's 1 qi of destiny array. After all, he would soon no longer need this body, and the spirit qi would be wasted if he did not drain it. Moreover, by forcibly improving Yunxiao's strength now, the assurance of his rebirth would also be increased. 5 stars Great Martial Master. Peak 5 stars Great Martial Master. 6 stars. Just as Yunxiao broke through to a 6 stars Great Martial Master, a familiar voice suddenly rang out beside his ear. I was wondering why there's something wrong. It turns out that you are the culprit. Give me back my realm. A figure burst in, and surprisingly, it was Hung Yuan. It had only been a few days, but the aura exuded from him marked him a peak 1-star martial emperor. Bastard! Bastard! This is unforgivable. I was pushing for the realm of 2 stars martial emperors when the spirit qi in this divine tree grew weaker and weaker, and now it is almost completely gone. It turns out that you are the one behind this. Give me back my primordial qi. Give me back my realm. As soon as he saw the almost corporeal heaven and earth spirit chi around Yunxiao, he froze in place and realized what had happened instantly, and he almost went crazy. So much spirit chi. How dare a mere worm of the three powers realm like you enjoy so much spirit chi? Give me spirit chi. I want to break through into 2 stars martial emperor. Hung Yuan rushed up wildly. He had only sneaked into the Kunwu divine tree for a few days and had already obtained tremendous benefits, which he did not even dare to imagine in the past. Not only did he break through to become a martial emperor smoothly, but he had also pushed his cultivation base up to the peak of a 1-star martial emperor realm without any obstacles. If he succeeded in breaking through, the constellation sex branch in Qinghai would be headed by him when he returned. However, at that critical juncture, the divine tree that kept supplying him with spirit chi suddenly seemed to have dried up, losing all its spirit chi, which instantly drove him crazy. He knew that as long as he could get perhaps just 1/3 or 1/4 of the spirit chi gathering around Yunxiao now, he would be able to break through into a 2 stars martial emperor. Boy, you don't deserve to enjoy this spirit chi. Die now. He rushed up while roaring, and his fists crackled with energy. In his opinion, it was like a delicious cake being gnawed at by a rat, which disgusted and pained him. Yunxiao opened his eyes. Under the pressure of a martial emperor, there was not even a trace of emotion in his eyes. Instead, he unhurriedly formed the last seal in his hands. Meanwhile, the 9 golden tadpole-like characters floating around him flew into his palms, merging with the last character into a complicated and difficult-to-understand array. You are born in the water, and you will return to the fire. The cleansing flame of karma will reset the universe. As Yunxiao recited that, he pushed his palms out, and the array immediately spread out with him in the center. The flaming cloud symbol between his eyebrows left his body at that moment, turning into a mass of flame and spreading out in all directions. Under the flickering light of the flame, the tree spirit's shadow seemed to be shivering. Is it finally happening? Hung Yuan rushed in front of Yunxiao and was about to strike when a heat wave came blowing into his face. The flame that could burn off everything made his soul tremble in an instant, and a sense of death descended into his heart, which scared him out of his wits. He forcibly stopped himself and kicked the water to speed toward the outside. Spirit chi was good, but his life was more important. He was not a fool after all. With Yunxiao in the center, the phoenix flame rapidly spread out, quickly placing the whole core of the Kunwu divine tree in a sea of flame. Meanwhile, Yunxiao sat cross-legged and revealed his glazed body, allowing the flame to burn him while he kept reciting a spell. At that moment, the spirit chi in the Kunwu divine tree was almost fully depleted. All the razor clams hiding in it squeezed out of their cavities, trying to find out what was happening. Not good. There are enemies over there, and they have killed many of our people. What? Who dares to provoke the razor clam clan? I don't know, but the loss of spirit chi in the divine tree seems to be related to this group of people. Let's go and have a look. Damn it. I was at the juncture of breaking through. They will die for this. A large number of razor clams poured toward where Duanyu and the others stood. Although the 3 of them were martial emperors, they were tired of the killing, not to mention there were a few martial emperors among the foes, all of whom were killed by them as well. The 3 of them began to feel exhausted. Looking at the razor clams that kept pouring over, they all smiled wryly. Outside a cavity in the Kunwu divine tree, Delay knelt on the floor with an anxious look and said in a loud voice, Lord Wei Shi, a foreign clan has intruded the divine tree and killed many of my people. Even my clan chief, Demeng, died at the hands of those people. I hope Lord Wei Shi can help us. Humph! A disdainful cold snort rang out of the cavity. What does it matter to me when your people are killed? Our agreement is I help you seize this Kunwu divine tree, and you help me cultivate and break through. Since when have I become your hatchet man? No, we dare not. Delay seemed terrified of the person inside, and he said in a trembling voice, Lord Wei Shi, the divine tree is seriously damaged by those people. If we don't get rid of them and instead allow them to do as they please, my lord will not be able to continue cultivating when the divine tree dies. I was wondering why the spirit chi seems to have disappeared suddenly. Damn it, the person growled. Delay was delighted. He knew the person inside was going to do something. Sure enough, just as he was thinking, a person suddenly appeared in front of him, staring coldly at him. Delay felt as if two sharp knives had been thrust into his body, and he was so scared that he did not dare to look up. Wei Shi glanced in Duanyu and the other's direction as he snorted and said, "You razor clams are really useless. You can't even get rid of a few martial emperors. Well, I'll help you kill these few worms." Overjoyed, Delay hurriedly bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord Wei Shi. I'm sure the intruders will be destroyed in a flash under my lord's mighty strength. My admiration for my lord is as endless as the seawater." "That's enough." Wei Shi felt sick of it and interrupted him. "But I can't do it for nothing. I was cultivating to a critical juncture just now when the spirit chi was cut off, which has displeased me. How are you going to compensate me?" "Compensate?" Delay paused. "This? How can this be compensated?" "Humph." Wei Shi's eyes gleamed fiercely and said, "I don't think you can compensate me, but thankfully you also have the strength of a martial emperor. Well, you will be honored to be my medicinal catalyst and let me suck all your energy essence." Hee. Wei Shi suddenly grinned, revealing two sharp fangs as he walked toward Delay, who was shivering in fear. After killing another batch of razor clams outside a cavity, Duanyu, Tai Pin and Tai Fan had grown very tired and exhausted. Tai Pin's appearance turned old again, and he kept panting. "Tai Fan, Sir Duan, retreat with Tai Ling and the others first. I'll wait for the Lord Holy Herald here." Looking at the razor clams pouting in at them, Tai Pin was afraid that if they stayed here for too long, they would not be able to hold out, and it would do more harm than good if all of them were killed. It would be ideal for the other two to retreat with the hopes of the Firefish clan while they still had the strength to do so. Duanyu's face also looked slightly grave. Where did that guy go? How can he be so unreliable at this critical juncture? He can't be dead, can he? Lord Holy Herald will never die. Tai Ling suddenly appeared behind the crowd, together with Tai Bai and Tai Xian. The three of them exuded a fierce force and looked very different from before. "Tai Ling, you have..." Tai Pin was taken aback, and he faintly sensed something from his son. Tai Ling grinned and said, "Dad, I've advanced to become a third-tier C refiner." Tai Pin gasped and his eyes grew wide. Overjoyed, he said, "Haha, I can't believe this is real. Your temperament is exactly the same as that of great sea refiners I've seen before. Haha, we, the Firefish clan, finally have our own great sea refiner. My lord," Tai Fan also said with joy. "Look at Tai Bai and Tai Xian. They too have become peak 9 stars martial grandmasters." Tai Pin's eyes fell on Tai Bai and Tai Xian. He immediately burst into tears of joy and murmured, "Heaven blesses the Firefish clan. Lord Holy Herald is indeed sent by the heaven to help us." But Duanyu frowned and said unhappily, "Since you've reached the peak of the 9 stars, why don't you just stay inside and make the breakthrough? Do you know that it will take you at least decades of hard cultivation to advance to the realm of martial emperors after missing this opportunity?" That startled Tai Pin and woke him up. Furious, he said, "Get back inside and cultivate now. We will hold the enemies back here. Don't come out again unless you've broken through to the realm of martial emperors." Tai Bai and Tai Xian exchanged a wry smile while Tai Ling said regretfully, "Dad, for some reason, there is no more spirit chi inside. Even the array constructed by the Lord Holy Herald cannot absorb any spirit chi." "What?" Everyone was taken aback, and Tai Pin said shockingly, "How did that happen? Although this Kunwu divine tree is severely damaged, it is not yet at the stage of losing all its spirit chi." With a worried look, Duanyu said, "Could this have something to do with that fellow?" "Who is that fellow?" Suddenly, a voice boomed. It sounded from a great distance, but seemed to have come next to them in just a flash. "Who goes there?" Everyone was shocked. Just the powerful voice alone had already filled their hearts with chills and made them shiver in fear. In just a flash, a dark figure appeared in front of the crowd and said coldly, "The Kunwu divine tree suddenly lost all its spirit chi. Did you guys do it?" Looking at the man, Tai Pin's pupils constricted, and he cried out in horror, "Lord Wei Shi! You are Lord Wei Shi!" Wei Shi gave him a lazy look and said in a cold voice, "Tai Pin, if you are wise, tell me why the spirit Shi has disappeared. Otherwise, don't blame me for being cruel to you." In the face of his mighty aura, Tai Pin could not help but tremble. But eventually mustered his courage and roared, "I understand now. No wonder you were siding the Razor Clam clan when they occupied my clan's divine tree. It turns out that you are their accomplice. Humph. Such a divine object can only be possessed by capable people. Your Firefish clan had occupied it for so many years, but all you knew was to eat its leaves. The Razor Clam clan had just taken over it for not long, and the strength of their whole clan has already improved by several levels. Even I have benefited greatly from it. Don't you feel ashamed? Now, quickly bring me back the spirit Chi, or I'll not only kill the few of you today, but also wipe out the whole Firefish clan." Wei Shi's face grew ferocious. During this period, the benefits he obtained in the Kunwu divine tree were tremendous, but now they were destroyed by the few lowly worms in front of him. How could he not be angry? With a miserable smile, Tai Pin said, "Lord Wei Shi, I don't know why the spirit Chi has disappeared. If you want to kill someone, just kill me and let the others go. For the past 10,000 years, the Firefish clan has been respectful to your Manta Ray clan, and we never missed the yearly tribute. I hope my lord can show mercy. No more nonsense. Your tens of thousands of years of tributes are not even worth a day of my meditation here. So, you refuse to tell me, do you? Well, I'll make you my first target then." Wei Shi did not want to listen to Tai Pin's explanation. In his ear, those were just excuses for refusing to hand over the spirit Chi. He reached out a hand and grabbed Tai Pin up as he said coldly, "This is your last chance. Speak." Tai Pin hurriedly shouted to the people behind him, "Don't move! You are no match for him." Duan Yu looked at the seal on his chest. Long tails grew out of the 3 black dots again, joining end to end and forming a circle. With that, his cultivation base dropped rapidly, and he was once again just a 7 stars martial grandmaster. Tai Fan looked very anxious, but he dared not to step forward rashly. "Humph! At least you know your limitations." Wei Shi showed his ferocious fangs and sneered, "You are a martial emperor, but if you still refuse to tell me, I'll make you my tonic. Release him." Suddenly, a faint voice rang out. "Release him and I'll tell you the reason why the spirit Chi disappeared." Everyone's expression changed slightly, but everyone showed a hint of joy. Who goes there?" Wei Shi's expression changed drastically. Even with his cultivation base, he could not find the person, and he did not know where the voice came from. "It doesn't matter who I am. You said you want spirit Chi? Fine, I'll give it to you. Let's see if you have the life to take it." The voice sounded again. Suddenly, the void began to distort slightly, and everyone felt that the scene before their eyes became somewhat blurry. Boom! All of a sudden, a great sheet of flame came out of nowhere, rolling down like a landslide and enveloping everyone. Wei Shi sucked in a cold breath as he watched a monstrous sea of flames come pouring down at him. And what was even more frightening to him was that there was a power in the flames that even he felt powerless against. "How dare you fool me!" In a fit of rage, he threw Tai Pin away and protected himself with a layer of energy as he shot himself up like a cannonball, trying to rush out of this sea of flames. Ah! Just as he rushed into the flames, however, he let out a miserable cry. To his horror, his layer of protective energy was burned off in an instant, and the flames penetrated through his skin into his body, burning at all his internal organs and bones and flesh. Ah! Impossible! How could this happen? Ridiculous! This is ridiculous! Unwilling to accept the fact, Wei Shi roared in fury, "I'm a martial supreme! I've ruled over this sea area for over 400 years. I'm invincible! How could I die here? Nu!" Within seconds, Wei Shi's body was completely burned to the ground and vanished in the sea. Duan Yu gasped. Looking at the flames that came pouring down, He hastily cried out in terror, "Hey! Hey! Be careful and don't burn us. These flames kill everyone they touch." He was also an expert at controlling fire, but he felt a suffocating fear under this divine flame. It was a sense of submission that came from the depths of his soul. He immediately realized that this was the Phoenix true flame. Boom! The sea of flames came straight down but spread out over the few of them, forming a large dome with them inside. After that, it began to spread out in all directions, turning everything along the way into nothingness. Divine flame. Is this the divine flame that had once given our ancestor the tremendous opportunity? Tai Fan watched the mighty flame quietly. Meanwhile, the surrounding seawater receded, and the whole Kunwu divine tree was exposed in a vacuum as it began to go through the baptism of flame. Tai Ling was greatly shocked as well, but after pausing for a moment, he quickly attended to Tai Pin's injury. The clan chief was at the end of his life to begin with, and after overly exhausting his energy and being tortured by Wei Shi, he was at his last breath. Run for your life. The place is on fire. Fuck. Where did the fire come from? Who's so careless? Run my ass. Quickly put out the fire. Put out my ass. All the people are dead. It'll be too late if you don't run now. Ah. New. How can this be? I'm a martial king. I've barely touched the flame. Ah! The miserable shrieks and wails of the razor clams rose around them. People could be seen running desperately everywhere, but the speed of this Phoenix divine flame could almost directly break through space, and soon it had engulfed the whole Kunwu divine tree. All the members of the Razor Clam clan were burned to death inside. The blazing fire continued to burn at the bottom of the sea. From afar, it looked like there was true spirited fire phoenix coiling in a vacuum, with its body shrouded in bright red flames. Tens of thousands of miles away, inside a crystal palace in the depths of the South Sea, an old man could be seen sitting cross-legged with a rainbow light swirled restlessly around him. His hands flashed in incantation gestures and kept producing various golden tadpole-like characters, as if he were cultivating some kind of very powerful divine ability. Suddenly, he clasped his hands together and completely stopped cultivating. His eyes flicked open, from which came shooting out a beam of light as he stared in shock at the depths of the South Sea, as if he were looking through the void. What's going on? What exactly is this feeling? Could there be some almighty expert descending into my South Sea? The old man murmured to himself and rose to his feet. His face was serious and there was a deeply puzzled look in his eyes. Marine Patrol Xianxia, where are you? He cried out. The seawater at the center of the crystal palace began to bubble, and a dark-skinned seaman gradually appeared inside. Slowly, he walked out of the bubbles and dropped to one knee in front of the old man. At your service, my lord, the old man said lightly. Quickly go to the north to find out who exactly is displaying his divine power in my waters. Once you find that out, report back at once. And remember, don't ever offend that person. Understood, the Xianxia answered, and then his figure gradually became blurry, eventually disappearing from the crystal palace. A huge phoenix in the form of flame lay dormant at the seafloor where the Kunwu divine tree once stood, burning slowly and steadily. The nearby seawater receded crazily, creating a vacuum of at least several kilometers deep in the sea. And the seawater surrounding the vacuum was boiling rapidly, producing a large amount of white steams and bubbles, obscuring all eyes. Although Duanyu and the others were untouched by the flames that surrounded them, the immense heat had almost cooked them through. Each of them desperately produced energy barriers to fend off the heat wave, but their bodies still gradually turned red. The fire had alerted not only the sovereign of the South Sea, but also terrified all the creatures within 10,000 miles. A force that made their hearts palpitate was rippling across the seawater, forcing them to swim further away. No one knew how long the flames had been burning for. Duanyu and the others were almost toasted, their lips cracked with blood, and their skins parched. Each one of them was expressionless while holding on an energy barrier to fend off the heat wave. However, their barriers seemed to grow smaller, and they seemed to be at the end of their tether. If this continues, we will surely die. How long has the fire been burning for? A few days? What the hell is that lad doing? He didn't burn himself to death, did he? Looking at the seal on his chest closed up once again. Duanyu breathed a deep sigh and stepped back while Tai Fan shouted and stepped up as he took his place to support the barrier. Tai Pin was panting and he looked extremely weak. Holy! The Lord Holy Herald will be fine. Tai Ling chimed in, yes, Sir Duan. If anything did happen to the Lord Holy Herald, these flames would have burned through the barriers. Duanyu found that makes sense. However, if the fire kept burning like this, they would still die sooner or later. After Yunxiao killed Wei Shi, he had not made a sound and could not be contacted. The fire has abated. Suddenly, Tai Ling cried out in great joy. Look, the fire has abated. The flames outside the barrier began to recede at a rate visible to the naked eyes, and its range shrunk rapidly, as if the burning was completed. Tai Fan breathed a long sigh of relief, but he did not dare to release the barrier. After all, the heat wave out there was still extremely strong, and he feared that once he released the barrier, the few of them would be cooked through instantly. The flames that blotted out the world shrunk rapidly like the retreating waves, revealing a blackened land. The Kunwu divine tree was long gone, leaving behind not even a trace, as if it had never been there before. After the fire retreated, Yunxiao's figure gradually emerged, and when those phoenix flames retreated to his side, they transformed into a beautiful fire phoenix and danced around him while crying incessantly. Then, he performed a hand seal and produced an ancient-looking, tadpole-like golden character in his palm. Attracted by it, the fire phoenix flew into his forehead. Who are you? How dare you spy on me in the void? Show yourself. Yunxiao opened his eyes abruptly, in which two flames danced as he looked at a spot in the void. Meanwhile, the pressure of a true spirited fire phoenix spread out, as if to lock down this part of the world. Please calm down, my lord. Over the vacuum, a rift suddenly appeared, and from inside came walking out a dark-skinned seaman. His eyes were filled with shock and dubious look as he glanced at Yunxiao down below and said loudly, May I know who is the almighty expert showing his divine power in the South Sea? Yunxiao was startled when he saw the man, but he put on a disdainful look and sneered. So it is you, the Marine Patrol Xianxia. Get out of here. He was a peak martial sovereign in his previous life, so he naturally had an awe-inspiring manner. Moreover, the phoenix flame was still twitching in his body, emanating a pressure of the divine realm that struck fear into the heart of anyone who sensed it. The Xianxia swallowed hard. In his eyes, Yunxiao was only a martial lord, but the manner and the pressure unintentionally revealed from him were enough to make his soul shiver. His strength of a martial lord is definitely an illusion. Just this pressure and the destructive divine flame just now are enough to prove that he is far stronger than me. And he even knows I'm the Marine Patrol Xianxia. His lordship also told me to never offend this man. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, Please tell me your name, my lord, so I can answer my master when I return. When he said that, he found that his palms were full of cold sweat. Yunxiao narrowed his eyes, and his glance gradually turned cold. If you want to know who I am, let Qin Ming come here and ask himself. If you don't scram within 3 breaths, I'll make you stay here forever. The flames in his eyes suddenly transformed into 2 phoenixes and looked as if they were about to fly out. There was a sudden shiver in the Marine Patrol Xianxia's soul. He hurriedly waved a hand and ripped a rift in the void, stepping into it. These almighty experts were all figures with eccentric characters, and it was very common for them to kill someone upon the slightest displeasure. If he offended this man and was killed, Lord Sea King might not avenge him either. At the thought of that, he immediately fled into the rift and said, Please calm down, my lord. I'll report back to the Lord Sea King right now. The Qin Ming mentioned by Yunxiao just now was none other than the king of the South Sea. As soon as the Xianxia was gone, the rift in the void closed up and vanished, as if it had never appeared before. Yunxiao felt a sudden relief, and he was already covered in a cold sweat. He did not expect that helping the Kunwu divine tree to be reborn would cause such a stir, which alerted even that person in the Crystal Palace of the South Sea. Luckily, the phoenix true flame had not returned to his soul and was still twitching in his body, and the aura he emanated was actually that of the 10 worlds realm contained in the divine flame. Otherwise, he was not sure if he could scare the Xianxia away. He quickly calmed himself down and made the divine flame return to the depths of his soul, which gradually quieted down. Meanwhile, cracks began to appear across his glazed body and his skin began to break apart. But Xianxia's face was strangely calm, not showing a trace of fear but slightly smiling. Bang! Eventually, all his skin broke and shattered, turning into streams of light and vanishing in the void. After that, a layer of harsh, sparkling white light appeared over his skin, flashing like diamonds and making him seem to be standing in a light source that could not be looked straight at. Tyrant Body. I've reached the 2nd level of the Tyrant Body Tempering Technique. Tyrant Body. The Tyrant Body Tempering Technique was divided into 3 levels: the Glazed Body, the Tyrant Body, and the Indestructible Body. Looking at the light emitting from his body and sensing the surging power in his flesh, Xianxia was overjoyed. With this fleshly body alone and without even using energy, he could fight head-on against a martial lord now. Moreover, after absorbing a large amount of the Kunwu Divine Tree's spirit qi and being baked by the divine fire, he had already reached the realm of 1-star martial lords. Haha! A martial lord of the 4 quadrants realm. I finally came back little by little, Xianxia said to himself in great joy. Suddenly, he arched an eyebrow as he found several people flying toward him in the distance. Ha! What happened to you? How did you make yourselves look like you've been roasted? Xianxia was taken aback when he saw the few people. All of them were red and black from top to bottom. Apart from their eyeballs, which were still white, they did not look like who they were. Everyone was staring at him with bitter eyes, while Duanyu said angrily, "It's all your fault. But we need to leave as soon as possible after all the stir you've created. Look around the vacuum. When the seawater pours over later, an extremely huge whirlpool will definitely be formed, and there's no way we can escape it with our strength." Xianxia looked up at those gloomy waters. Although the phoenix true flame was gone, they did not fall but still floated overhead, and were giving off an increasingly strong sense of oppression, like the sign that heaven was about to fall and earth collapse. "You're right, let's run now. If the seawater pours in, not only Sir Duan and me, even you who live in the water may not survive." Holy Lord, Holy Herald. Tai Pin, who was almost completely dried up, suddenly asked, "Was it Lord Marine Patrol Xianxia from the Crystal Palace who appeared just now?" His voice was extremely hoarse. "Oh, why? Yes, that fellow is the Marine Patrol Xianxia." Xianxia asked in surprise, "We are at a critical juncture, so why do you still have the mood to ask this?" There had been speculation in their hearts, but upon hearing Xianxia's confirmation, the few firefish people trembled with fear and their eyes filled with terror. In a trembling voice, Tai Pin said, Your Excellency, rumor has it that Lord Marine Patrol Xianxia is an expert of the 9 heavens realm. Moreover, the Xianxia clan is in existence just second to the Imperial clan in the 4 seas, and they are an S-grade existence. But, he was scared away by you. What? A martial sovereign. Duanyu was terrified as well, and he cried out, "No wonder he can rip the void and travel in it. Lad, I can't believe you are so bold, scaring off a martial sovereign with the phoenix true flame. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it." Although he was taken aback, he quickly figured out the reason behind it. It must be the divine fire's power that scared the martial sovereign off. Otherwise, with his current cultivation base of a martial lord, he could never withstand even a finger from that expert. Ugh! Martial lord. At the thought of that, Duanyu's pupils constricted and his eyes burst with a light as he stared at Xianxia. You. He swallowed hard and squeaked like a duck with its neck held by someone. Martial lord. I can't believe you've stepped over a major realm and advanced into a martial lord. Fuck. Am I dreaming now? Hit me now. I want to see if I'm dreaming. Bang. Xianxia mercilessly threw out a punch. The air at the bottom of the sea was thin, but the fist still produced a sharp whistle, smashing Duanyu in the face and knocking him flying away. Hee hee. The tyrant body is indeed amazing. Yun Xiao looked at his fist with satisfaction as he smiled and said to himself. He did not use any energy in the punch but pure physical strength, and yet it had knocked a martial emperor away. It hurts. Duanyu held his face as he came running back, almost in tears. I didn't ask you to hit my face. Hey, what exactly is going on with you? This doesn't make sense at all. The rate of your progress has put those so-called geniuses on the continent to shame. Have you ever considered the feelings of common people like us? Heaven is fucking unfair. Yun Xiao snorted coldly. Let's go now. The seawater is going to pour down at any time, and after the Wuxia gets back and reports his finding here, Qin Ming may rip apart the void and come here with him. If you keep nagging, all of us will die. Upon hearing the names Wuxia and Qin Ming, Tai Pin and the other firefish people shivered all over as they turned and hurried away. The crashing of seawater was terrible, but they believed they could still withstand it. However, just thinking about the Wuxia and Qin Ming was enough to take the strength out of their legs. It was the deterrence at the soul level caused by countless years of hierarchical repression of the sea people. Duanyu dared not to cause trouble again. The 8 of them propped up a huge bubble together, and with them inside, it flew toward the boundless seawater like a chariot. After all, Yun Xiao, Tai Ling, and Tai Fei could not fly in the air yet. With the joint efforts of all the people, the bubble soon burst into the water. However, that seemed to have triggered the seawater already at the edge, as the surrounding water instantly poured into it after they rushed out of the vacuum, forming a colossal whirlpool in a flash. The expressions of the 8 people changed drastically. Meanwhile, Yun Xiao took out various medicinal pills he had and gave them to the others, so that they could recover their strength and support the huge bubble, lest it burst under the tremendous force of the whirlpool. Boom! The whirlpool gradually expanded, spreading out for miles and dragging all the nearby sea people over. It seemed to spread endlessly across the seafloor. After an unknown time, it finally subsided, but everything within hundreds of miles was destroyed, with only huge traces streaked across the sandy seafloor. A figure emerged from the sand and spat out a few mouthfuls of sand. The mud that covered him peeled off by itself, soon revealing a body as clean as jade. It was Yun Xiao. Although the impact of the whirlpool was so great that even their bubble burst, it did not cause any damage to his body. It seemed that this tyrant body was more powerful than he had expected. He glanced at the boundless seafloor, sending out his divine sense to search for the others. Although the whirlpool was powerful, Tai Fan and the others were sea people after all, so they would be fine. The only one he needed to worry about was their clan chief, Tai Pin. He was afraid that the old man could not withstand such an impact. Oh? This is... He looked up slightly at a man struggling to get up in the mud a few hundred meters away. After the man struggled up, he floated quietly in the sea, gasping for breath while recalling what had just happened. His eyes were full of fear. Suddenly, a sword beam flashed, and the faint roar of a tiger could be heard in the bottom of the sea. Then he saw a blood-red tiger come rushing at him. Fuck! The man cursed as his whole body shot away and dodged the sword. Instead of giving up, the enemy chased over, materializing thousands of blue lotus flowers that engulfed him. Don't be so ignorant, boy. I'm a 2-stars martial emperor, and I can kill you like a dog. Get out of here if you're smart. The man was Hung Yuan. He had survived the whirlpool, but his energy was almost depleted, and his body was severely wounded. He was frightened by Yun Xiao's Phoenix True Flame, so he only thought of fleeing now. Don't think I'm afraid of you because I'm hurt. There is a gap of 3 major realms between us. He kept making threats, only to find that Yun Xiao simply ignored them but continued to attack him, and the moves got fiercer and fiercer. Hung Yuan was completely speechless. As he dodged, he growled, "Are you an idiot? I'm 3 major realms stronger than you, so why do you keep attacking me? Do you know the difference between a martial emperor and a martial lord? Are you stupid?" What made him even angrier was that he, as a martial emperor, was severely wounded in the whirlpool, but this martial lord did not look like he was injured at all. Wait, what? His eyes grew wide suddenly as he cried out in horror. You are a martial lord now. I remember you were just a great martial master a few days ago. He was so shocked that his reaction was half a beat slow, and that caused him to be stabbed by Xianxiao's tiger tooth in the thigh. The sharp pain made him come to his senses, and although he was fuming, there was nothing else he could do but turn and flee. Hung Yuan knew that with his current condition, he was no match for even a great martial master, not to mention a martial lord. He could kill Xianxiao at the cost of damaging his cultivation base though, but he would not be able to return to the surface through this brutal sea after that. Trying to run away from me? Are you an idiot? You are 3 major realms stronger than me. Xianxiao returned the jape as he chased up while swinging and slashing with his sword. Hung Yuan was so angry that he almost vomited blood, and a sense of shame and anger filled his heart. But he could only gnash his teeth and run away with a gloomy face. His life was extremely precious, and as he had just advanced to the martial emperor realm not long ago, he had not even enjoyed the lofty status yet. He could not get himself killed just to slay a mere worm to vent his anger. Lord Holy Herald, come and have a look at my dad. He's dying. Tai Ling's voice came over. In the distance, he was holding Tai Pin in a puddle of mud, covered with mud. The latter's aura was extremely weak. Xianxiao looked back, and the distance between him and Hung Yuan was immediately widened. Hung Yuan was overjoyed, and he seized the opportunity to muster his energy and sped hundreds of meters away. Then, he turned around as he laughed and said with a sense of relief, "Boy, I've memorized how you look. When you get back to Qinghai, I'll definitely teach you a lesson and let you know what is the gap between you and someone who is 3 major realms stronger." Ha ha! Laughing triumphantly, he swam toward the surface. Xianxiao sighed as he watched him flee. He was not trying to kill Hung Yuan, but the man held something he attached great importance: the purple 9 neonate flood dragon. If Hung Yuan were to return to Qinghai, he would have no hope of getting the flood dragon back. He immediately swam toward Tai Ling. The young seaman's face was already covered with tears, while the wizened Tai Ling lay feebly in his arms and looked decades older than before. The clan chief was at the end of his tether. "Lord Holy Herald, you are sent by heaven, so you must have a way to save my dad, right?" While sobbing, Tai Ling pulled at Xiao's sleeve and asked hopefully. Xiao sighed. "Heavenly Tao operates on consistent principles. Your father's time has really come. If you can find another Kunwu divine tree, maybe I can save his life." There was always sorrow and death in life. He did not want to lie to Tai Ling, so he told him the truth. Tai Ling immediately fell into despair and his heart turned cold. Even the entire South Sea was unlikely to have a second Kunwu divine tree, let alone the nearby waters. Biting his lips, he held Tai Pin tightly in his arms. "Silly child, all men must die, and I've lived long enough." Tai Pin smiled faintly and said in a weak voice, "I have been unworthy of my people for hundreds of years as a clan chief. Not only have I done nothing great for the Firefish clan, but I had almost brought it to its knees. If heaven hadn't sent Lord Holy Herald, even death could hardly absolve me from the blame. My lord, you are our best clan chief. My lord, you can't die. The Firefish clan depends on you for guidance." At some point in time, the others had also emerged from the seafloor and come around them, all sobbing and crying. Duan Yu, on the other hand, was silent as he stood beside Xiao with an indifferent face. Cough, cough. Tai Pin coughed violently, and then he smiled and said, "I'm really happy to see that you have grown to this point. I now officially appoint Tai Fan as the next chief of the Firefish clan. Support him with all your heart and all your might." "No, I can't." Tai Fan flatly rejected that. "My lord, your position should be taken over by Tai Ling. He is a third-tier sea refiner, and his prestige is far above mine." Tai Ling cried, "Brother Tai Fan, this is my father's last wish, so don't refuse it. Do you want him to die with an everlasting regret?" "That's right. Brother Tai Fan, this is the clan chief's order, so you can refuse it." Tai Xian chimed in. Looking at Tai Fan, who seemed to have a hard time making up his mind, Tai Pin chuckled and said, Tai Ling, Tai Xen, Tai Bai. The three of you will be the elders of the Firefish clan. I want you to support Tai Fan with all your heart and might. Understood, my lord. We will do our best to help Brother Tai Fan. Tai Xen and Tai Bai answered with tears coursing down their cheeks. Tai Pin held out his hand with difficulty, grabbing toward Yunxiao. Your Excellency, thank you. After I die, please help me take care of the Firefish clan. Yunxiao frowned, and he said with a troubled look, I fear I have to return to the heavenly martial continent at once when this is over, and I don't know when I will meet you again. But, if we have the chance to meet again, I'll take good care of the Firefish clan. Tai Fan smiled wryly and said, I had hoped your Excellency could stay for some time. Tai Fan and the others are still young after all, and if your Excellency can guide them, they will definitely make fewer mistakes. Yunxiao sighed and said, I'm sorry, my lord. I can't do that. Meanwhile, Duan Yu frowned slightly, as he could clearly sense that Tai Fan and the others had begun to get angry. Tai Pin said hurriedly, In that case, if you have the chance to meet again, I hope your Excellency can take good care of them. Yunxiao nodded and said, I will. I'm glad to hear that. Tai Pin breathed a sigh of relief, and then he turned to Tai Fan and the others. Remember, no matter when or what happens, Lord Holy Herald will always be a friend to the Firefish clan. You must treat him with the highest courtesy. He also felt the few people's dissatisfactions with Yunxiao, and he was worried that they might have a conflict later. Understood, my lord. Lord Holy Herald will always be a friend to the Firefish clan. While sobbing, the few of them answered. A faint smile appeared on Tai Pin's face, and his pupils began to dilate at last. A seaman who had lived for hundreds of years, a martial emperor and the chief of a clan, finally completed his life and died peacefully. My lord, Dad, Tai Fan, Tai Ling, and the others knelt in front of Tai Pin and began to cry in loud voices. Meanwhile, Yunxiao and Duan Yu stood by in silent tribute, bowing slightly with solemn expressions. Gradually, Tai Pin's body turned soft and light, and then it was ablaze by itself and began burning. Tai Fan and the others were crying and did not look surprised, as if they knew it would happen. It should also be because their bloodline was baptized by the Phoenix's nirvana fire. Yunxiao sighed with mixed emotions in his heart. He did not expect the Phoenix True Flame to be so powerful that it had changed the bloodline of an entire clan for over 10,000 years. Soon, Tai Pin's body turned into nothingness in the flames and completely disappeared into the sea. At that moment, Tai Fan and the others slowly stopped crying and stood up. Yunxiao broke the silence by saying, Everyone, my business here is done. I'll take my leave now. There was a trace of resentment in Tai Fan's eyes as he said crossly, Don't think that just because you're the Holy Herald, you're above the Firefish clan. Why didn't you agree to our clan chief when he begged you to stay? You could just lie to him and make him leave us in peace. Yunxiao squinted at him and said, The future of the Firefish clan is in your own hands. Do you wish to entrust your future to an outsider? That gave Tai Fan a pause. While frowning, he said, You are the Holy Herald, so we naturally believe you. Yunxiao gave a cold snort and said, Since you believe me, I naturally cannot lie to you, including your old clan chief. This? Tai Fan fell silent. Lord Holy Herald. Tai Ling walked up as he looked at Yunxiao expectantly and said shyly, I wish to learn the art of sea refining from my lord. Yunxiao smiled. You do have a gift. He pondered for a moment and said, Your father has just passed away, and you are the new elder of the Firefish clan. There are a lot of things for you to deal with. Well, when the Firefish clan settles down, you can come to the city of Yanwu to find me at any time. I will teach you my art of alchemy. The city of Yanwu? Tai Ling's eyes grew wide, and he felt a little nervous. Although sea people could live on land, he had never been to the human continent. Yes, I'm the city lord of Yanwu, and my name is Li Yunxiao. Yunxiao patted him on the forehead as he smiled and said, Yanwu is located in the state of Tianshui near the Fire Crow Empire, which lies in the south of the heavenly martial continent. Whenever you come, you can see me there. Tai Ling clenched his fists tightly and said firmly, when things settle down in the Firefish clan, I'll definitely go to Yanwu to find Lord Holy Herald. I want to learn all Lord Holy Herald's art of alchemy and become a guru of sea refining. I will wait for you to come to me, and I will wait for you to become the best sea refiner in the 4 seas, surpassing Ha-Si, Shuelai, and Senior Tai Ling was stunned, and he asked with a shocking expression, My lord, do you know these 3 legendary gurus of sea refining? Tai Fan and the others were shocked as well. The 3 names Yunxiao mentioned were the best sea refiners in the 4 seas. They were revered by thousands like the gods over the cloud, and their status was not inferior to that of the kings of the 4 seas. Yunxiao laughed and said, They are nothing but 3 old men. You are as talented as any of them. Tai Ling froze completely. He had never dreamed of comparing himself to the 3 legendary men. Yunxiao's words were like a seed of dreams, deeply buried in his heart and waiting for the day of germination. Since my lord has decided to leave, I'll let Tai Fei lead the way for you, said Tai Fan with a sigh. After all, the sea is too large, and I'm afraid you'll get lost. Yunxiao nodded slightly. After that, Tai Fei quickly and respectfully led the way ahead, bringing both men up to the surface. When they came, he had used ropes to bring them, but when they left, he was respectful. Tai Fei was grateful. The fated chance of bringing Yunxiao to his clan had greatly benefited him. He had advanced 3 realms in the Kunwu Divine Tree, and he was now an 8 stars martial grandmaster. In the Firefish clan, he was just weaker than Tai Fan and the other 2. If he were to cultivate himself, it would take him at least 70 to 80 years to achieve the same result. The 3 of them sped through the sea, and they were soon back on the surface, finally able to see the bright blue sky again. Tai Fei knew Yunxiao was not a martial grandmaster yet and could not hover in midair, so he produced a bubble with an incantation gesture and made it float under Yunxiao's feet, allowing him to stand firmly in the sky. My lord, this is where we first met. May I know how my lord is going to get back? Yunxiao glanced around at the boundless sea, and then he rested his eyes on a small island in the distance and said, We'll rest on that island first. We don't know when the rainbow fog will appear again, so we can only wait for it now. It was a small, uninhabited island, about dozens of miles long and wide. After landing on it, Yunxiao asked Tai Fei to go back. Tai Fei raised his hands over his head as he bowed deeply 3 times and said gratefully, Please take care, my lord. I hope we will meet again soon. After saying that, he closed his eyes, for fear that he might burst into tears. Then he turned and dove back into the water, disappearing into the vast sea. Yunxiao sighed. He had come into contact with many sea people, but he had no good impression of them, and his hands were stained with the blood of countless sea people. It was the first time he had become so close to a sea clan. Duanyu suddenly laughed and said, Are you reluctant to part with them? Well, now that I look at you again, I find that you do look like those fish heads. Why don't you just stay and marry them? I can assure you that they will let you choose the most beautiful fish heads in their clan, and perhaps you will evolve into exactly the same as them in a few hundred years. Ha ha! Yunxiao stared at him scornfully and said in a cold voice, What else do you know besides seeking pleasure through mental masturbation? You! The sharp retort choked Duanyu. I'm making a fool out of myself again by provoking this lad. He scolded himself in his heart. Since he met Yunxiao, he never succeeded in mocking the latter. But not only did he not learn his lesson, he also kept doing it repeatedly. Frustrated, he turned and sat cross-legged down to meditate. In the past, no matter what method he used or what cultivation technique he practiced, he could never increase his energy. However, after using the technique Yunxiao taught him, although his body was still sealed most of the time, he could clearly sense that his energy was growing steadily. Once the seal was completely removed, his cultivation base would definitely be improved by leaps and bounds. Looking at his back, Yunxiao was amused. There seemed to be many low-level demon beasts and sea beasts on this island. Oh, the strongest one is actually a 4th-tier demon beast. Hey! If you are upset, you can find them and vent your air. Duan turned and glared at Yunxiao, before vanishing from where he was in the next instant. Yunxiao smiled and held up his hands. A light emerged between them, and a tiny sapling could be seen floating there, surrounded by streams of colorful light and looking full of energy. Hee, I really have the impulse to swallow it now. Such a magical spirit qi, if I eat it, my cultivation base can be increased by at least 3 tiers. Yunxiao swallowed his saliva as he put the sapling back into his storage ring with a flip of his hand. I must resist the impulse. No amount of spirit qi can compare with the wisp of great primal qi. The sapling was the Kunwu divine tree. Normally, no living things could survive in a storage mystic artifact. But the tree spirit told him that it could be put in any storage mystic artifact, only that it could not grow when inside. Yunxiao carefully tested that and found it to be true, and he could not help but marvel at its magical ability. Among all precious plants and minerals, this Kunwu divine tree should be one of the very top existences. Suddenly, the seawater in front of him exploded, from which came floating up a group of firefish people. Stepping on bubbles, they flew up and landed on the island. Their leader was Tai Fei. While smiling, he said, "Greetings, my lord. We almost forget to return my lord's treasure." Meanwhile, the seawater gradually parted as numerous firefish people pulled the Tiger King chariot out of the water. Before long, a huge Tiger King chariot hovered in front of Yunxiao. Yunxiao laughed. "I'm glad you remembered." Hee. Tai Fei smiled embarrassingly before diving back into the water with his people and disappearing. As soon as Yunxiao swept the chariot with his divine sense, his expression changed. And when he leaped onto the chariot, his mouth grew wide enough to fit a whole watermelon. Numerous purple primordial crystals and various undersea treasures filled the entire chariot. Although the spirit qi exuding from them was not as astonishing as that of the Kunwu divine tree, it was also almost corporeal, nourishing every pore on his body. He felt extremely comfortable and pleasant just by standing there and breathing. "These fellows?" Yunxiao was moved as he said, "I really regret sacrificing the other 2 chariots now. Otherwise, it would be nice to let them confiscate them together." He simply sorted out the treasures and put them all into his ring before throwing out a few incantation seals and putting away the chariot as well. After that, he went back to the beach. From time to time, the roar of demon beasts could be heard on the island, but they quickly quieted down. As the whole island was under Yunxiao's divine sense, he knew that the strongest demon beast was just a 4th-tier one, who was no match for Duan Yu. Suddenly, he had a strange feeling. He looked up toward the vast expanse of sea and saw the air over the water begin to twist slightly, becoming somewhat blurry. "Rainbow fog!" he shouted in great joy. Meanwhile, Duan Yu appeared beside Yunxiao, looking excitedly into the distance as well. He smelled of blood, and it seemed that he had a good catch. However, he missed the moment when Tai Fei brought treasures. Otherwise, he would definitely ask Yunxiao to share them with him, and he would get at least some of the treasures. "We can finally go back." Duan Yu's face beamed. Although the voyage was extremely dangerous, the gains were unusually great. He not only broke through and became a 2-stars martial emperor, but also found the way to remove the seal on him. Now he could not wait to get back. Specks of pink began to slowly emerge in the distorting air over the sea in the distance. From afar, it looked as if thousands of peach blossoms dotted the sky and the sea as both men waited quietly. As time went by, those pink specks grew more in number and their color grew darker. Soon, the whole region was foggy and blurry like a dream. "It's so strong." Duan Yu was taken aback. Even though they were far apart, the pink crystal dust could still affect his mind. It was much stronger than the one they met before. Yunxiao looked calm. His current soul power was already at the level of a 4th-tier alchemist, so he would have no problem in safely traveling through the pink crystal dust. "Shall we go now?" Duan Yu urged. "No, we'll wait a bit more," Yunxiao said flatly. "Wait." Duan Yu did not understand. The more pink crystal dust there was, the more stable the space tunnel would be. And if the dust grew less, the tunnel would become unstable. Now was the best time to enter indeed. Yes, we'll wait. Xianxia nodded. His eyes were fixed on the rainbow fog and did not relax for a moment. It was true that when the pink crystal dust was most abundant, the space tunnel was the most stable, but it was also the time when the soul power was consumed the most. Creating and maintaining a space tunnel in the rainbow fog consumed a significant amount of soul power, and it was extremely dangerous even for alchemists. Had it not been because there was lesser crystal dust when they came, they might not have been able to arrive here safely. At that moment, a beam of light suddenly shot toward the pink crystal dust and quickly pierced into it. Duan Yu's pupils constricted as he said while fuming, "It is that fellow from the Constellation sect. He's been hiding nearby." Xianxia shouted as well, "This is the time. After him." In addition to waiting for the pink crystal dust to grow less, his other important purpose was to wait for Hung Yuan to show up. Duan Yu grabbed Yunxiao's arm as he took a step and rushed into the rainbow fog in the next instant. Although he was only a 7-stars martial grandmaster now, he could unlock the seal at any time and restore his strength of a 2-stars martial emperor for an hour, which was more than enough for him to fight Hung Yuan. What a strong power of crystal dust! As soon as they stepped into the fog, Duan Yu felt a pink aura come blowing into his face, causing his head to reel. That frightened him, and he hurriedly covered himself from head to bottom with soul power, isolating himself from the pink crystal dust. But he felt extremely laborious just by doing that. Although Hung Yuan entered the rainbow fog earlier than them, they could still see him struggling to move forward as a vague figure ahead, not too far ahead of them. With a dark face, he was walking one step at a time with great difficulty. Clearly, he felt a tremendous pressure as well. "Hey, my friend from the Constellation sect, wait for us," Xianxia shouted coldly, startled. Hung Yuan turned and saw a blood-colored tiger come swooping at him, roaring, trying to devour him. Horror-stricken, he threw out a palm, shattering the tiger instantly. A terrified look came over his face as he bellowed, "You're crazy. Do you not know what this place is? Do you want to die together?" Xianxia showed an enlightened look and said, "Oh, right. We are inside a rainbow fog." Hung Yuan breathed a heavy sigh of relief and said, "Thankfully, you are not too stupid. If we were to fight here, although I'm also under great pressure, I'll have no problem killing you two first before passing the fog safely. I just want to give you a fair opportunity to settle our scores when we get back to Qinghai. Chihuai, are you out of your mind? Do you understand what I said?" As he was only halfway through, he saw Yunxiao's mocking expression, and then a large amount of pink crystal dust was attracted by his soul power. "Humph, you're exactly like that old freak Constellation. Will you die if you don't brag?" said Yunxiao in a cold voice. His hands seemed to have produced a powerful suction, attracting nearby pink crystal dust into a mass, which was then compressed into 2 pink balls that looked as beautiful as snowballs. "What are you trying to do? Stop it right now." Hung Yuan was scared out of his wits. He could not believe that Yunxiao could grab pink crystal dust in the palms. Although he could do that also by mustering all his soul power, he would not be able to pass through the rainbow fog after that. In the distance, Duan Yu was staring at him with a sneer, as if he were about to strike at any time. Yunxiao ignored his shout. When the 2 pink balls grew to the size of footballs, he pushed his hand forward, throwing both out with his soul power. While spinning, the 2 balls pierced through the fog toward Hung Yuan. "Madman! You are a complete madman. Fuck you!" Hung Yuan gasped as if he had seen the scariest thing in the world. He hastily dodged aside, but then realized that the balls were too fast for him to avoid. So, he quickly mustered soul power in his palms and pushed them forward to knock the balls away. A hideous grin came over Yunxiao's face as he put his palms together and clenched them into fists while pulling them apart like he was pulling dough. An invisible light exploded out in his hands, and in the meantime, the 2 balls rushing toward Hung Yuan suddenly blew apart, breaking into countless tiny crystals and shooting out in all directions like 2 flowers blooming. Hung Yuan had just pushed his palms forward when he saw the crystal balls explode and pink crystal dust shooting over at him. He was so terrified that he broke out in a cold sweat instantly. He had some reserves originally, but he hurriedly poured all his soul power into his palms now, forming an invisible barrier in front of him. But to his horror, he soon found that the pink crystal dust, which was granular just now, had transformed into needles by Xianxia, and thousands of them managed to directly pierce his soul power barrier and were shooting toward his body. Bastard! Hung Yuan roared, feeling extremely angry and upset. He quickly performed an incantation gesture with both hands, and a diamond-shaped white stone emerged between his palms in the next instant. Under the pressure of his primordial qi, the stone broke out in beams of white light and then exploded. The explosion of the stone released a mass of pale yellow light, which blocked all the pink crystal needles and forced them to halt in midair. Seeing that, Hong Yuan breathed a sigh of relief, his face turning pale and bloodless with fear while his eyes were filled with a look of pain. Clearly, the white stone was something extraordinary. A 3-live stone. Xianxia was taken aback. With his eyes widened, he said furiously, "You should have told me that you have a 3-live stone, and I would have spared your life. Damn it! How could you destroy such a precious treasure? 1,000 deaths would not be enough to atone for your sin." 3-live stones were a kind of very strange stone that contained endless soul power. Rumors had it that Immortal had once found a 3-live stone and placed it beside his pillow when he got back. He dreamed of his previous life, present life, and future life, a total of 3 lives, when he slept that same night, which gave the stone its name. Its value was even greater than a purple 9 neonate flood dragon. Hong Yuan clearly did not know about the origin of the stone. He had purchased it from some trading company, and because he sensed there was a great soul power in it, he brought it with him all the time to study it. He had released its soul power just now to save his life. After the stone exploded, a large amount of soul power spread out, blowing away the pink crystal dust around Hong Yuan and forming a safe zone. Just as he was relieved, he heard a sharp whirring sound. He looked up and gasped as he broke out in a cold sweat instantly. He saw Xianxia wear a dark face and a fierce expression, with a basketball-sized pink crystal ball spinning on the tip of his right index finger, which grew larger and larger and produced an ear-splitting noise. His heart sank at the sight. "Young man, we can talk this over. A gentleman reasons things out and does not resort to force. We are destined to meet each other, and to cut others some slack is to give yourself the leeway in time of need." Hong Yuan was completely scared out of his wits. He knew he could never withstand this pink crystal ball, so he hastily resorted to reasoning. When he saw that he did not move Xianxia, he drew a long face and begged, "Hero, please spare me. I was wrong. I will kowtow to you and give you everything you want. Please just spare me my pathetic life." That stunned Duanyu, and he scolded, "You are such a coward and a fucking disgrace to all martial emperors." Yes, yes, yes. I'm a coward, and I'm a disgrace to all martial emperors," Hong Yuan said hastily. "You're absolutely right about me, Lord Duan. Please intercede with this young gentleman for me and ask him to spare my life. When we get back, I'll follow you and serve you like a servant." Duanyu. Xianxia felt sick on hearing that. He had seen many warriors who were scared out of their wits and feared death, but this was the first time he saw such a cheap one. "This is fucking disgusting. You're truly from the Constellation sect, comparable to your sect leader. Now taste my attack." The pink crystal ball gradually floated up into the sky. Suddenly, a stream of mighty soul power shot out of Xianxia's forehead and hit the crystal ball like a hammer, knocking it away like a baseball and filling the air with a sharp whistle. Seeing that, Hong Yuan's heart sunk into an abyss instantly. "Damn it, little bastard. I'll not let you get away with it easily, even if I am dead." Hong Yuan gritted his teeth in despair, his eyes filled with a venomous look. "You want the purple 9 neonate flood dragon, don't you? Keep dreaming then." He took out a jade bottle and poured his primordial qi into it, which produced a cracking sound instantly. A huge purple figure emerged in the purple fog, struggling violently with its head grabbed by Hong Yuan. "Die!" Reluctantly, Hong Yuan crushed the flood dragon's head. The beast's huge body twitched in pain as it was thrown into the distance. "Since you want to kill me, I'll not let you get anything from me." Meanwhile, he took out his storage ring and crushed it as well. Boom! Yunxiao's crystal ball smashed into Hung Yuan's arm and blew apart. Countless crystal needles shot out of it, piercing his body and turning him into a porcupine. These crystals were not powerful, but they melted into his body as soon as they touched his skin. In just a flash, Hung Yuan turned pink all over and his pupils gradually dilated, showing a look of intense fear. With a blank look, he floated in mid-air and seemed to have calmed down. Apart from turning pink all over, there seemed to be nothing unusual about him. Yunxiao and Duanyu exchanged a glance and began to observe with high vigilance. They had never seen anyone absorb so much pink crystal dust, so they had no idea what would happen to him. Hung Yuan's expression became strangely blank, and then it gradually changed. Suddenly, a smile brushed his lips, seeming bizarre and cold, startling Yunxiao and Duanyu. Ha! Ha ha! All of a sudden, he threw his head back and laughed. Ha ha! Ha ha ha! After laughing for a few minutes, he quieted down. With a bizarre look in his eyes, he glanced at Yunxiao and Duanyu as he gave a cold snort and said in a hoarse voice, "A sealed martial emperor? A fourth-tier alchemist? Har! 2 ants." Yunxiao and Duanyu's expressions changed drastically, and both of them raised their vigilance to the highest level. But a look of contempt appeared in Hung Yuan's eyes, and then he turned into a beam of red light and pierced through the rainbow fog into the distance. Wherever he passed, the pink crystal dust retreated and made way for him. What's going on? Duanyu was dumbfounded, and his heart raced. Hung Yuan gave him too much pressure just now, and the glance alone nearly made him collapse. Looking in the direction where Hung Yuan had disappeared, Yunxiao's face turned unusually serious as he said, "He was possessed by someone." "What? Possession?" Duanyu was taken aback as he cried out in horror. "Is there really such an evil method in the world? I always thought it was a fabrication." Yunxiao was silent for a moment, and then he said, "The person who possessed Hung Yuan's body clearly has a very strong soul power. Look at how the pink crystal dust is pushed a dozen meters from him wherever he goes. Even I can't do that." Duanyu was shocked. Yunxiao's soul power had definitely reached the level of a fourth-tier alchemist, and that meant the person's soul power was at least at the level of a fifth-tier alchemist. He swallowed and said with great difficulty, Could that person be an alchemist?" Yunxiao nodded and said, "It's highly likely. In general, only alchemists will practice this technique, because their souls are strong enough to leave their bodies and exist independently." Then he remembered that he, too, had reincarnated in Tianshui after his death in the Tiandang Mountains. But that should be due to the Great Expansion divine technique. The heavenly martial realm was vast, and no one could guarantee that there were no other cultivation techniques more magical than the Great Expansion divine technique. That person gave Yunxiao a very strong sense of threat. Luckily, he was too disdained to attack both of them. Otherwise, they would not be able to return to Qinghai. Yunxiao sighed and said, "That person should have been living in this pink crystal dust in the form of a soul until he entered Hung Yuan's body and took possession of it. The world is so large that everything strange is possible. We are too ignorant." The more Duanyu listened, the more shocked he became. Will there be other souls living in the pink dust? Fuck if I know. Yunxiao cursed in his heart as he sped forward and said, "Never mind that. Just don't touch the dust. Let's quickly find that flood dragon's body. That's a great treasure." Duanyu got a fright when he saw Yunxiao move away, and he hurriedly flew after him. All the way, he was in a state of terror, for he felt as if wandering souls were staring at him everywhere. Not far away, Yunxiao found the flood dragon. Its head was completely blown off, leaving only its body, which was already turning pink. He dared not touch it with his hand, so he threw out a few incantation seals and put it into his storage ring. Carefully, they made their way through the rainbow fog. Nothing happened after that, and they soon emerged from the fog to see a great blue sea. Duanyu took a deep breath and roared with joy, "Ha! I'm back! I'm finally back!" His voice spread with force and shook the sea, setting off huge waves that rolled into the distance. "Who is making so much noise here?" You have disturbed the infinity sect's hunting. A sonorous voice rang out, and then 7 or 8 blue wolf chariots gradually emerged over the sea, on top of which stood many warriors with angry faces. The infinity sect? Haha, this is indeed Qinghai. I'm finally back. Duan Yu was even happier, and he laughed wildly. I can't believe you're still laughing. A man said angrily. Do you have any idea how much time we spent preparing to kill this golden ox? Just the preparations alone had taken us 3 months. Not to mention the countless materials and secret techniques involved. But your roar has ruined everything. How do you want to compensate us? Compensate? Duan Yu's eyes grew cold, and a hint of a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Another man was taken aback. He could not sense Duan Yu's cultivation base, which only meant that this stranger's strength was far greater than his. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead instantly. He went up and pulled the first man back as he gave him a wink and said warily, Senior, a magnanimous man like you will not be bothered by what he said. We had indeed spent great effort in preparation to hunt this golden ox, and we do feel pain seeing all the hard work get ruined. However, it has nothing to do with Senior. We're just unlucky. Humph. The first man seemed unconvinced as he said angrily, We bought tens of thousands of invisible talismans just to hide these 10 chariots. Duan Yu's expression changed. A powerful aura rushed out of him, covering the whole sea surface and enveloping all these people of the Infinity Sect. That startled and panicked everyone. Duan Yu's aura was stronger than they had expected. The man who spoke was so scared that he stepped back repeatedly while drawing his sword and unsealing it in a flash. The rest of the people did not stand by idly. They fled at full speed toward the chariots, intending to join their forces to increase their chances of winning. To hunt the golden ox, they had practiced a concerted technique countless times. As long as they could return to their chariots, they would be able to keep their lives. Suddenly, a beam of white light pierced through the air and overtook all of them in an instant before landing gently on a chariot. With his back facing the crowd, Duan Yu lifted a hand. A mass of white flame gradually emerged in his palm and slowly stretched longer into his heavenly halberd while exuding a scary aura. One of the men gasped and said in horror, Not good! He's going to destroy our chariots. With a dark face, another man said furiously, Senior, we don't know you, so why do you want to kill us? Duan Yu turned a deaf ear to them and pushed his right hand down. Immediately, the heavenly halberd turned into a beam of golden light and shot straight down, exploding on the surface of the sea and then blooming like a golden lotus flower in the seawater, opening up a vacuum tunnel that went straight to the bottom of the sea. The Infinity Sect's disciples widened their eyes in horror and stared at Duan Yu with fear. No one knew what he was doing. Moo! The sound of a sea beast rang out from the bottom of the sea, accompanied by a large amount of demonic energy and painful cries. Humph! This is a tough one. White scorching ghost flame. Explode. Duan Yu's eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent as he performed an incantation gesture with one hand. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed out from the bottom of the sea. The seawater seemed to have boiled at this moment, as plumes of white smoke rose from it. The disciples of Infinity Sect were in a panic. They could not believe that Duan Yu's strength was so horrifying. They had been foolishly trying to join forces against him, but they had fortunately not been able to do so, or they would have gone up in smoke now. The plumes of white smoke were mixed with wisps of blood. Even meanwhile, a gust of sea breeze scattered the smoke, revealing a huge golden ox floating in the sea. There was a large gash in its chest, from where blood kept flowing out. The sea beast was dead. He killed the golden ox hiding at the bottom of the sea with only one strike. What exactly is this senior's cultivation base? In his capacity as a senior expert, he should not make things difficult for us, should he? It's hard to say. Some experts are psychopaths and like to torture people. Shut your fucking mouth. If you provoke him, I'll be the first to kill you. The people of Infinity Sect became nervous as they waited to be judged by Duan Yu. Take this golden ox. Is this enough to compensate you? Duan Yu grinned as he pointed at the sea beast and said, What? A disciple froze, and then he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "You must be joking, senior. You've killed the golden ox all by yourself. We can't take it. You just have to let us go." Duanyu frowned and said angrily, "I, Duanyu, am not a bully. Take it when I say so. Now, put away all your things and get the hell out of here. Duan, you are Senior Duanyu." Taken aback, the disciples said dubiously, "Didn't you die at sea? What nonsense are you talking about?" Duanyu growled. "No, nothing." The disciple hastily covered his mouth. In his heart, he scolded himself for shooting his mouth off, and thought he deserved it if he were killed here today. In the distance, Xianxia's eyebrows twitched slightly. Stepping on waves, he drifted over and asked in a soft voice, "Be clear with what you say. What's going on?" The disciple gave Duanyu a nervous look. "Speak," Duanyu said in a deep voice. That frightened him, and he said bitterly, "A few days ago, a piece of news was circulating in Qinghai about Senior Duanyu and a few other senior martial grandmasters, saying that you were all killed while hunting a purple 9 neonate flood dragon together. This caused quite a stir in Qinghai. The Flying Sword Sect, the Tiger Slayer Sect, and the Foursquare Library even sent experts to search for Senior Ma Wendi, Senior Yen Feiyue, and Senior Shi Hongkai, but they found nothing. Damn it, it must be... Duanyu cursed, but Yun Xiao raised a hand and interrupted him. "What is the source of the news?" Yun Xiao stared at the disciple and asked calmly. The disciple was extremely shocked. Duanyu was a well-known martial grandmaster, while this teenager was just a one-star martial lord and even younger than him. However, Duanyu seemed to follow his lead. Could he be a disciple of some superpower? The disciple believed what was on his mind, so he said quickly and respectfully, "It was an expert from the Constellation sect. It is said that the person watched the whole battle from a distance, and he was fortunately far away from it, so he survived." Yun Xiao said, "I see. Thank you for telling us. Take this ox back." When he saw that the disciple was about to reject again, he immediately said in a cold voice, "If you refuse again, we may change our mind and kill you all." The few disciples of Infinity Sect looked at each other. In the end, they took the golden ox with great joy and thanked Yun Xiao and Duanyu before leaving at top speed. "What do you think of this, lad? Should we spread the story of the Constellation Sect's killing of the other hunters?" Duanyu turned and asked Yun Xiao. Vaguely, he had taken the latter as his backbone. Although he still argued with the other, after spending some time together, his heart was already filled with admiration for this young man. Yun Xiao glanced at him and said, "Lad? Call me young Master Yun." "Fuck you," Duanyu cursed. "Can you at least show a little bit of respect for a senior in martial arts? I'm a 2-stars martial emperor after all, and I'm considered a well-known supreme figure in sky fragrance. How could you be so impolite to me? Do you want to know what we should do next?" "I do." "Then call me young Master Yun." While fuming, Duanyu gnashed his teeth and said, "Young Master Yun." Yun Xiao smiled and said, "That's more like it." Although the Flying Sword Sect, Tiger Slayer Sect, and Foursquare Library are weaker than the Constellation Sect, they are considered giants in a small place like Sky Fragrance Empire. It is a good thing to stir up conflicts between them, and we can take the opportunity to steal the Blueluan warship. "That's true." Duanyu nodded slightly, but when he listened to the last part of Yun Xiao's plan, his eyes got big and he cried out shockingly, What did you say? You want to steal the Blueluan warship? Are you insane? That is a 6-tier warship. It's like a palace and unstoppable. Even if you manage to steal it, the Constellation Sect will hunt us down to the end of the world. Not to mention there is no way you can take it away. You underestimate the Constellation Sect. A Blueluan warship is nothing to them. Even if they do send someone to hunt us, it will be at most for the sake of faces. Yun Xiao's face grew dark and said, To save you, I've lost 3 Tiger King chariots, but you never expressed your gratitude. And now, you're making such a fuss when I've only asked you to slightly compensate me. I'll think of a way to find you 3 Tiger King chariots. Duanyu's face was pale. To him, the Constellation Sect was a colossal existence. Xiao said disdainfully. According to Hang Yuan, the strongest warrior of the Constellation sect in Qinghai is just a one-star martial emperor named Su Feng. You can unlock your seal for an hour, which is more than enough to kill him. As for the Blueluan warship, I'll think of a way to control it. Duan Yu's face flickered as he said, if we really kill Su Feng and steal the warship, we will completely be at odds with the Constellation sect, a monster. I'm afraid there won't be much room for us on the whole heavenly martial continent after that. There's no joking about it. You'd better think twice. Xiao said, don't forget that you were the one who the Constellation sect wanted to kill in the beginning. Now that Hang Yuan is missing but you are still alive, they will definitely come to you even if you don't provoke them. It is you who needs to think twice, not me. That tempted Duan Yu instantly. The Constellation sect had never hesitated to send people to kill them, so why couldn't he fight back? And, since he was still alive, they would not let him go so easily. But he was still worried. It is said that a Blueluan warship can borrow the power of the heaven and earth, and a full power attack unleashed from it can instantly kill even a martial emperor. With a confident smile, Xiao said, don't worry, you just have to focus on dealing with that Su Feng. A peak Blueluan warship does have such power, but it requires 6 third-tier alchemists to host the arrays in it to achieve that. It's a pity that the one owned by the Constellation sect in Qinghai is just a defective warship. It can be used to scare people, yes, but only in dreams can its full power be brought into play. Duan Yu's eyes flickered as he listened. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, all right, I'll throw caution to the wind and do this together with you. It's the Constellation sect who betrayed me first, so they can't blame me for this. After that, Xiao took out a blue wolf chariot. Both of them stood inside, and then the chariot turned into a beam of blue light as it sped over the sea. Half a day later, the story of the Constellation sect sending people to kill Ma Wendy and others, and seizing the Purple 9 neonate flood dragon, spread like wildfire throughout Qinghai. I can't believe Lord Ma Wendy and the others were killed by people sent by Constellation sect. TSK. This is really a piece of shocking news. They were 7 martial grandmasters, and each was a person of exceptional ability. And yet all of them are dead. A hole has been poked through the sky this time. I'm a little skeptical. The Constellation sect is extremely strong, but its foundation is not in the south after all. So why would it offend 3 local tyrants like this? This is too unwise. What unwise? No gentleman has a petty mind and no true man is without venom. I call this wise. This is not wise. This is perverse. It is said that the leader of the Constellation sect is a pervert. He is already hundreds of years old, but he's still looking for 12 to 13 years old girls to play with. Shoo! Lower your voice. How dare you say that? Are you insane? Are you tired of living? What did I say? I didn't say anything. Come, let's drink. It was the greatest taboo in Qinghai to murder someone and seize their treasure. Almost all warriors here were hunters, and what they feared the most was someone sneak attacking them when they were hunting. If anyone did that and it was learned by others, he would be despised by the whole Qinghai. After the news spread, the Flying Sword sect, Tiger Slayer sect, and Foursquare Library had begun sending a large number of experts into Qinghai in just half a day. It was said that there were even martial emperors among them. Although the 3 sects could not be compared with the Constellation sect, who was ranked among the top sects of the continent, they were at least local giants who could not bear being bullied. Besides, the experts they lost were martial grandmasters who were pillars of their sections. The situation in Qinghai suddenly became tense. Sects shrunk their range of activities, and independent hunters rarely went out to sea. An atmosphere of uncertainty hung over Qinghai, and for a moment, even the streets began to empty. 2 days later, inside Constellation sect's 6th-tier Blueluan warship, several alchemists were fixing a few arrays while various precious materials were being constantly brought over. The Blueluan warship was like a mini-moving castle. It was many times larger than a Tiger King chariot, blotting out the sky as it hovered over Qinghai. Since the story of the Constellation sect sneak attacking fellow hunters spread, the warship had begun to get very busy. Various resources were brought up in large quantities while the number of alchemists also spiked suddenly, all of whom were busied fixing all kinds of damage throughout the warship. But the other Blueluan warship it faced was the opposite. It became very quiet, hovering there lifelessly without moving and showing no sign of activities. Due to its overly large size, problems that occurred in a Blueluan warship could hardly be fixed on time. And since the one owned by Constellation Sect was a defective warship, which was mainly used as a facade, the condition of its interior was even worse. But now, Constellation Sect suddenly began to fix it with a huge amount of resources, and that had instantly attracted wild guesses and intensified the atmosphere. These alchemists were responsible for repairing several offensive arrays. The Constellation Sect was a supreme existence in Qinghai, so the warship's offensive arrays had been neglected for a long time. Now that they were required to be repaired urgently, these alchemists were already extremely tired from all the work. There were also a large number of alchemists scattered in other places to carry out restoration work. The whole warship looked busy. This Blueluan warship is too insane. With the four of us working together and so many materials, we've only managed to restore one array. It's hard to imagine how strong the alchemist who refined this warship is. Nonsense. It takes at least several or even dozens of 6-tier alchemists to refine such a large warship. Had it not been because we have the array diagrams, do you think the few of us can restore its arrays? Tisk TSK. Refining a Blueluan warship must be a grand and exciting scene to behold. I wish I had a chance to witness it. Hee. You all have good potential. You'll get a chance someday. The alchemists were taken aback, and they all turned around. The last remark was not said by one of them, but a smiling young man who stood not far away. An alchemist's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "Who are you? How did you enter here?" The faces of 4 warriors in the room changed as well, and they had surrounded the young man in a flash, each taking out his weapon and looking alert. The 4 of them were all 8 stars martial lords, but none of them discovered the young man's trace. So, even though his aura was just of a 1-star martial lord, they dared not underestimate him. This place was the central control area of the Blueluan warship, with not only the main hover array, but also more than 300 auxiliary arrays, each connected with the other. It was the most important area on the ship. The Constellation Sect's main purpose of stationing 4 martial lords here was to direct the transportation of resources, and they never thought someone would trespass here. After all, numerous experts had been stationed throughout the warship, and not even a fly could come inside. I remember you. You are the boy from Manduo Trading Company who brought primordial crystals. An alchemist cried out suddenly. That was how Xianxia snaked into the warship. Hee. You do have a good memory. That's why I said you all have good potential. Work hard and fight for a chance to go to the Sea of Soul formation in the future. Now please move aside. I want to study your main array. While smiling, Xianxia walked toward the main array. In the center of the room, a huge array was carved on a kind of beautiful stone material. Surrounding the array were complicated tadpole-like characters, which were connected with countless nearby various arrays. This was the core of the whole warship, the place that supplied energy to everything. Stop it right there, a martial lord shouted. Light flashed in his hand as a sharp sword slashed through the air, sweeping toward Yunxiao's neck. He did not dare to be careless, so he had attacked with his full force. The other 3 martial lords produced their weapons as well: a spear, a warhammer, and a chain. They targeted him from 3 directions, making sure that he could not run away. The place was the heart of the warship, and the 4 of them knew the seriousness of this matter. As experts of Martial King's realm and above were all sent to guard the various important passages, no one expected an enemy to slip in. Fortunately, it was only a 1-star martial lord. Clang! With a faint smile on his face, Xianxia lifted a hand unhurriedly and knocked the sword with a flick of his index finger. The sword produced a crisp sound as it bounced back. After that, he took 2 steps to easily dodge the spear and smashed its shaft with a punch. The martial lord was shocked as he almost lost his grip. Meanwhile, Xianxia threw out another punch, knocking it out of the martial lord's hand. Then he grabbed it and swung it toward the chain. Clang! Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew, and wherever the spear passed, the silver chain lost its glow instantly and turned gray. The martial lord's pupils constricted. Suddenly he gathered his energy in his palms and threw them out. Xianxia sneered as he thrust the spear, which turned into a beam of light darting toward the martial lord's throat like a bolt of lightning. It frightened the latter, and hurriedly he pulled back his palms and clasped them around the spearhead. But shockingly, he was knocked back dozens of meters by a tremendous force, and his palms were even bleeding. At that moment, the war hammer fell, doubled in size as it smashed right at the back of Xianxia's head. Clang! The hammer vibrated and buzzed, as if it had hit metal. Taken aback, the martial lord performed several incantation gestures and gathered his energy in his hands before smashing them down onto the hammer. He was going to suppress Xianxia by force. Weighing 10,000 caddies and filled with all his energy, the hammer crashed down like a small mountain. A cracking sound was heard as the floor under Xianxia's feet cracked with lines. The people around turned pale in horror. How could he be fine when even the floor was cracked? The martial lord was startled as well, and he felt ashamed and angry. He roared, throwing out his palms several times in a row. Suddenly, the hammer began to spin, drilling crazily at Xianxia's back like a drilling bit. What shocked everyone was that a large number of sparks were produced, as if it had met a rock that was very hard to destroy. Xianxia's eyes were slightly closed. It was not that he could not dodge the hammer, but as he had just cultivated the tyrant body, he wished to test how tough it was. The full power attack of an 8-stars martial lord had barely made his blood and chi boil. It was only when the hammer began to drill that he felt a wash of pain coming from his back. Ha! His pupils widened and muscles stretched tautly while a faint soft light emitted from inside his body, swirling around him. The pain in his back instantly weakened, and then it was completely gone. Ha ha! The tyrant body didn't disappoint me. He roared with laughter. A force exploded out of his body, pushing the hammer away. Then he turned and threw out both fists, which did not have any energy fluctuation. It was a full-force punch with pure physical strength. Rumble! A muffled rumble rang out of the hammer. The martial lord was startled, as he felt a great force come through the hammer and shake him, causing his blood and chi to boil. Rumble! Xianxia's eyes gleamed, and he began to attack crazily. His fists flew like shooting stars, and in a flash, he had thrown out dozens of punches, dimming the hammer and shaking the martial lord until he had coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. His fists did not stop flying, and he kept punching frantically. The people around were struck dumb and forgot how to move as they watched the scene play out. Boom! A muffled explosion echoed out. After being punched over 100 times, the war hammer blew apart, its fragments flying in all directions. As it was already spiritually connected with the martial lord, the moment the hammer shattered, the martial lord's mind was greatly shaken, and he spewed out a mouthful of blood. Xianxia's eyes were cold as he threw out another punch. A sharp whistle pierced through the air and a force smashed into the martial lord's chest before coming out from his back. The martial lord's eyes grew big with a look of disbelief in them before he fell back to the ground and died. The faces of the alchemists and the remaining 3 martial lords turned as pale as sheets, completely terrified. The warhammer was the strongest mystic weapon among the 4 of them, and it was a 4th-tier mystic weapon. However, the young man had just destroyed it with bare hands. Everyone was thoroughly struck dumb. Even a martial emperor could not blow apart a 4th-tier mystic weapon with pure physical strength. Xianxia held his fists up. Blood dripped from them as they glowed with a faint yellow light, but they soon returned to normal. He glanced around with his cold eyes and said, "I want you all to calm down, and if anyone dares to move, I'll kill him." Everyone stopped breathing and felt cold all over. They could only watch as he walked toward the main array in the center. Xianxia glanced at the main array, and then at the hundreds of messy arrays around it. While frowning, he said, "I can't believe it is in such a ruinous state. Sure enough, this warship is just here to serve as a facade. Why is the Constellation sect so fucking concerned about its reputation? How much money do I have to spend to repair this defective warship? The few alchemists looked at each other in surprise. Could this young man also know about arrays? Standing on the main array, Xianxia frowned and pondered for a moment before he began to perform incantation gestures, which transformed into strings of tadpole-like characters and flew into different arrays. The alchemists and martial lords around were dumbfounded as they watched his skillful movements. Meanwhile, shouts could be heard coming from outside. It seemed someone had broken into the warship. Soon, the noises of fighting and shrieks filled the air, and the whole warship was affected and began to sway slightly. That startled the people in the room. A fight that vibrated the whole warship was definitely not something that people of their level could do. Could it be the three sects? Xianxia remained calm and continued to perform incantation gestures, but he murmured to himself, "You better be careful and don't damage this warship too much. Otherwise, you will cost me a lot of money. Who is courting death? How dare you come to the Constellation sect to cause trouble?" A furious roar echoed throughout the warship, and a terrible aura spread out. Even Xianxia sensed that in the central control room. It was none other than the person in charge of the Constellation sect in Qinghai, the one-star martial emperor Su Feng. After several martial grandmasters he sent were instantly killed, he finally broke out. "Humph! It's you who are going to die." The intruder was Duan Yu, and he said that in a deep voice. After that, a few screams rang out again. Clearly, some other disciples of the Constellation sect were killed. "Who are you? Tell me your name." "I, Su Feng. Never kill a nameless person. You are not worthy of knowing my name." "What? This aura, a 2-stars martial emperor. You are a 2-stars martial emperor." Su Feng's voice was panicked. "This, my lord. Please calm down. May I know how the Constellation sect offended my lord?" "Humph. You know very well what you have done. I'm here to collect debts for others. How dare you provoke the Constellation sect? You will bear the consequences. Elders, let's fight this enemy together." Furious roars and explosions immediately came from outside, and the few alchemists trembled with fear as they heard that. The intruder was actually a 2-stars martial emperor, 1 level higher than Su Feng. But luckily, the Constellation sect had many experts, and the martial emperor seemed to have been trapped in a tough battle. Xianxia, who was busy working in the main array, remained calm, as if what was going on outside had nothing to do with him. The few alchemists did not understand the incantation seals he performed and had no idea what he was up to. About 10 minutes later, Xianxia finally breathed a long sigh before he smiled and said, "It's done." Startled, everyone looked up and saw him raise his right hand, with light flickering atop and tadpole characters flowing out. Then, he suddenly brought it down and pressed it at the main array. Starting from his palm, a white light gradually spread out, faster and faster, and soon filled the whole central control room. In front of the shocked eyes of the few alchemists, as soon as the 3 martial lords were touched by the white light, their bodies flew out of the room uncontrollably as if they were pushed away by a great force. But the few alchemists felt nothing, and they stood quietly in the white light. A few breaths later, a burst of angry roars came from outside the central control room. "What's going on? What is this white light? Why am I being ejected from the warship as soon as I come into contact with the white light? Report this to Elder Tong immediately and ask him to solve this problem." "Oh no! Elder Tong is ejected from the warship as well." Duan Yu was fighting a hard battle with Su Feng and a dozen martial grandmasters. He was struggling under their joint attacks, and it was very difficult for him to defeat them, but he had no problem in keeping himself safe. However, he gradually became anxious because he could only unlock the seal for an hour, and once the time was over, he would certainly be killed. But at that moment, the white light spread over at an extremely fast speed. Amidst the shocked gazes of everyone, anyone who came into contact with it was instantly bounced away and ejected out of the warship. It was no exception for Su Feng. He exercised his power of a martial emperor, but that only gave him a few extra moments, and then he was ejected as well. Nothing happened to Duan Yu, and he still stood firmly inside the warship. He immediately realized that Xianxia had succeeded, and he burst into laughter. Su Feng's face was extremely dark. Standing outside the warship and watching as it was gradually surrounded by the white light, he felt his heart sink. The fellow must have a partner. Where is Elder Tong? Quickly ask him to find out what is going on. Elder Tong was the only fifth-tier alchemist on the warship, but his cultivation base in martial arts was only at the level of a great martial master. The moment he was ejected, he fell from the sky. Apart from martial grandmasters and above, the people of the Constellation sect all fell from the sky after they were ejected. Lord Su, Elder Tong was long ejected from the warship and has fallen somewhere unknown. Rubbish. You are all rubbish. Su Feng was furious, and his forehead broke out in a cold sweat. If anything happened to this hovered warship, he would definitely be severely punished by the sect. Elders, bomb the ship with all your might. I want the group of thieves dead. Upon hearing Su Feng's order, the crowd had no more scruples. Each of them took out his weapon, and bright light flickered and flashed for a moment as a dozen beams rained down toward the Blueluan warship. At this moment, the dozen experts who could stand in the air were all martial grandmasters. It also showed how strong the Constellation sect was. Boom! Rumble! Rumble! Numerous energy blasts exploded, producing rings or ripples that spread over the warship. Duan Yu looked up in shock. The attacks were so many that he would have a hard time dealing with them even if he had his peak strength. But surprisingly, the warship suddenly shot out a beam of blue light, which opened up into an energy barrier around it, blocking all the attacks. Su Feng's eyes grew wide, and he said in shock and anger, "The warship's defense is activated. Hasn't it been damaged for more than 10 years? And they told me that it can't be repaired? Who is inside the main control room? Who repaired the warship's main defensive array?" The other elders looked at each other and did not know what to do. When the Blueluan warship's primary defensive array was activated, there was no way they could blast it apart. Su Feng shivered with anger as he bellowed, "Attack! I don't believe there are so many primordial stones inside the main control room that they can support the defense for too long. When the primordial stones get depleted, I'll flay you alive." A Blueluan warship was so huge that it needed a lot of primordial stones just to keep it afloat. Therefore, a power without deep pockets could not afford one even if it were given for free. Moreover, the amount of primordial stones needed to activate its all-round defense were even more shocking. For a moment, the people of the Constellation sect exercised powerful techniques to wantonly attack the warship. Under the myriad attacks, the blue barrier gradually grew dim. At the sight of it, a look of joy immediately appeared on every face, and they increased the frequency of their attacks. Duan Yu looked up at the shrinking light barrier and ran toward the main control room worriedly. He did not know how long Yunxiao could hold out. But, when he stepped into the room, he was slightly taken aback, because he saw several strangers standing timidly in a corner, with fear written on their faces. Yunxiao took one look at him and ignored him as he turned to the few alchemists and said, "There are exactly 6 of you. Come over here and help. This Prajna magic sound array can only be activated by 6 people working together." "Prajna magic sound array?" An alchemist cried out shockingly, forgetting about his fear. "The primary offensive array of the Blueluan warship? Isn't it already damaged?" Yunxiao said vexedly, "How do you have the effrontery to say that? I had a hard time hijacking a warship, but it turned out to be rubbish. Can't you see I've been working so hard to fix it? Now, come over here, all of you." His shout frightened the 6 alchemists, and they walked over while trembling. They were also curious and dared not believe that the primary offensive array could be repaired so easily. As soon as they gathered around Yunxiao, their eyes went wide and gleamed, as if they just saw a table full of delicious food. "I'll teach the 6 of you techniques of controlling this Prajna magic sound array now. You only have the time of 10 breaths to understand them. If anything goes wrong, I'll kill you first," Yunxiao said with a cold face. The 6 surprised alchemists swallowed hard and broke out in cold sweats as they listened attentively, unaware of the deafening explosions outside the warship. Duan Yu watched them nervously and dared not to make a sound to disturb. He saw an array that emitted blue light beside Yunxiao begin to grow dim just like the barrier outside the warship, and it seemed to be on the verge of dying off completely. Su Feng and the others were glad to see that. Each of them took out a handful of medicinal pills and gulped them down. With that, their auras surged to greater heights in the blink of an eye. Energy blasts rained down even fiercer, causing the void around the warship to ripple and distort. Boom! The blue barrier suddenly blew apart, causing the void to tremble while the warship began to wobble. It's opened. Stop attacking and charge into the warship now. I want those people to be captured. Su Feng roared in great joy. Rumble. A martial grandmaster was too late to retract his attack. A huge golden sword slashed down and hacked the warship, breaking a two-story building from the middle. While frowning, Su Feng growled, I said stop attacking. If anyone destroys the warship, I'll kill him. Woo-woo. Woo-woo, woo-woo-woo. Suddenly from the warship came a whimpering sound, as if someone was blowing a horn, drifting, barely audible, and extremely unpleasant to the ear. What's going on? Asked Su Feng while frowning. He glared angrily at the martial grandmaster and said, Is it because you've damaged the warship? The martial grandmaster was fuming, but he dared not show that. In his heart, he cursed all the females in Su Feng's family. He listened for a few breaths and then said suspiciously, This sound is a bit like the Prajna magic sound. Prajna magic sound? That took the dozen martial grandmasters aback. They focused their attention on the sound, and their expressions changed drastically in the next instant, while their eyes flashed with terror. Su Feng's face turned green, and he almost burst into tears. In a hysterical voice, he screamed, Those damn alchemists! Didn't they say the primary offensive array is damaged and cannot be repaired? Fuck their ancestors. The rhythm is not strong, so let's quickly rush into the warship and take them down. Meanwhile, the woo-woo sound began to change, from a single note to a melody, from unpleasant to beautiful, as it spread through the air. There seemed to be a kind of ripples visible to the naked eye spreading over the sky, and the void vibrated with a faint rhythm as the melody changed. Inside another warship that was several miles away from the Constellation Sect's Blueluan warship, an old man of the Thousand Cranes court was resting with his eyes closed. Beneath him sat 2 rows of warriors, who were discussing something in low voices. The experts invited by the 3 sects are indeed amazing. I can't believe they actually took over the control of the Blueluan warship. Hee. Those bastards of the Constellation sect are going to suffer this time. Who is that 2 stars martial emperor who fought all the experts alone? If he is from the south, he should be a famous figure. A few days ago, the representatives of the 3 sects were here for a secret discussion. They wanted to borrow our strength to deal with the Constellation sect. It turns out that they had such a trump card. Fortunately, we had rejected them. You can't say that. The Flying Sword sect, Tiger Slayer sect, and Foursquare Library are powers from Skyfragrance Empire after all, and we should work together against a common enemy. Moreover, we, the Thousand Cranes court, are the ones who suffered the most from the Constellation sect. Now that someone has come forward, we are naturally happy to see what they can accomplish, and we will support them a little in the dark at most. We can't go to war with the Constellation sect openly, can we? Even as the people below were chatting, the old man suddenly opened his eyes, which flickered doubtfully. Then, his face grew dark, and he said angrily to the people below, This is an attack of the Prajna magic sound. The intelligence temple is eating shit. Who said the Constellation sect's primary offensive and defensive arrays are all damaged? And don't tell me that these 2 arrays were fixed in the last few days. I'm keeping a bunch of fools who eat shit. How can they miss such a piece of important information? Their primordial stones will be deducted for half a year. That applies to you as well, Xu Zhengqing, as you are the head of the Intelligence Temple, and you will be flogged once as the punishment. A man below shuddered while his forehead broke out in a cold sweat. He bowed and said in a trembling voice, I understand, my lord. The others turned their eyes to him, each with a different expression. Some gloating, some silent, some indifferent, and some closing their eyes to rest. Meanwhile, Su Feng and the others, who were flying toward the warship, suddenly halted with their expressions changing drastically. There was a look of horror in their eyes, and they put their hands over their ears, as if they had heard the most terrible thing in the world, and they all began to go mad. The Prajna magic sound was invented by a famous martial sovereign in the ancient times. It was a very clever sonic martial art technique that could disturb the listener's mind and attract mental demons. The most important thing for a warrior was to remove distractions from his mind and keep it quiet, because once mental demons were attracted, the energy would go wild, which could result in chi deviation, or in the worst-case scenario, death. This kind of martial art technique was extremely brutal and hard to defend against. Later on, it was modified into an array by a genius alchemist. Although the array was not as powerful as when it was exercised by a warrior, the result was the same, and very suitable to target a large group of enemies. Later on, it was built into all 6-tier Blueluan warships as the primary offensive array. Su Feng and others felt their energies surge within them, as if they were about to break out of their bodies. The more they tried to suppress them, the more violent the energies boiled. Damn alchemists! A bunch of crap! Su Feng roared resentfully and was about to fly away. Since he came to Qinghai, he had always wanted to repair the Prajna magic sound array, but he could not find anyone who knew how to repair it. He never thought that he would experience it in person when the array was activated for the first time. He was extremely angry, and together with the effect of the magic sound, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. His essence was hurt. The heavenly halberd, white flame ghost kill. Suddenly, an indifferent voice came from above. With a mocking look, Duanyu stared at him as the heavenly halberd in his hand swung down from the sky, shrouded in a mass of white flame. The void was completely locked down by the heavenly halberd. You! Su Feng was startled, and he roared in disbelief. How can you not be disturbed by the magic sound? He felt the qi and blood in his body flow faster and faster, gradually out of his control. But Duanyu looked calm, and his aura was stable as well, showing no sign of being disturbed. You are about to die, so why do you want to know so much? Duanyu said with a face of indifference while his eyes were full of killing intent. Had it not been for Yunxiao, he would have died in the South Sea with Ma Wendy and the others. Of course, even without the people from the Constellation sect, he reckoned he would be killed by Ma Wendy and the others first. But he was then pursued by Hung Yuan for several days, and if they had not run into the rainbow fog, he would have died nonetheless. He was now thoroughly conquered by Yunxiao. Even the tranquil mantra that could defend against the magic sound was taught by Yunxiao just now. The reason a Blueluan warship was so powerful was that it was equipped with an offensive array that covered a large area and was impossible to defend against. A mantra that could resist the attack of magic sound was definitely not an ordinary one. No, I refuse to accept this, Su Feng growled. His hands flashed in incantation gestures, and a large ball of primordial qi soon appeared in his palm. However, his skin kept cracking during the process, and in just a flash he was covered in blood. His energy finally lost control and broke out of his body. Even if I were to die, I'll bring you with me. Primordial Qi Blast. Explode. The large ball of light bloomed while Duanyu's heavenly halberd fell on it at the same time. Two forces collided with a boom and scattered, turning the whole sky as bright as daylight. Seized with terror, the eyes of those martial grandmasters of the Constellation sect went wide as they turned to flee. However, most of them were caught up in the impact of the two forces and were instantly wiped out. Even the Blueluan warship's tail was hit by a blast wave, and the whole ship was shaking. The battle was so noisy and violent that it had alarmed almost all the warriors in Qinghai. Everyone watched cautiously from a distance and no one dared to come closer. When they saw Su Feng self-detonate and many martial grandmasters be wiped out, they were struck dumb with astonishment. Meanwhile, the disciples of the Constellation sect, who were thrown out of the warship, were petrified as they watched that happen. In their hearts, Su Feng was a lofty figure like a god, and he was also one of the few top experts in Qinghai. It could be said that even if he encountered an enemy whom he could not defeat in Qinghai, he would have no problem escaping. But now, he blew himself up in front of their eyes and turned into dust. The white light that burst out under the collision of the two forces instantly hurt everyone's eyes, forcing them to close their eyes. Duan Yu was impacted by the force as well, which seriously injured his internal organs and made him cough out a mouthful of blood. He beckoned, and the heavenly halberd flew back into his hand before he flew straight into the warship. Soon, the warship began to slowly turn. At a glance, its tail that was being hit looked broken, but the main structure was not damaged. After Duan Yu went inside, it sped up and flew toward the South Sea. Of the two Blueluan warships that hovered all day over Qinghai, one suddenly left in front of everyone's eyes. That stunned the people in Qinghai, and they found it hard to believe. As the colossal warship was gone, sunlight poured straight down into the city and lit up those buildings that had not basked in the sun for years, and the whole Qinghai seemed to have turned brighter. Is this real? I can't believe it was driven away. Of the two warships, only the Thousand Cranes Court's one is left. Who exactly did this? They are so strong. Of course, it is the joint forces of the Flying Sword Sect, Tiger Slayer Sect, and Foursquare Library. Who else can destroy the Constellation Sect in Qinghai? Do the three sects have the strength? It would take at least a martial emperor to kill Su Feng, right? Well, that makes sense. I reckon the Thousand Cranes Court must be involved as well. The Constellation Sect is just a foreign power in Qinghai, and both of them had long-held grudges with one another. Shoo! Lower your voice. We better not talk about the grudges between powerful sects, or we might die one day without knowing why. In a small building in the distance, three old men watched with serious faces as the Blueluan warship sped away, speechless for a long time. They were the sect leaders of the Flying Sword Sect, Tiger Slayer Sect, and Foursquare Library. Judging from their auras, they were all peak 9 stars martial grandmasters. The sect leader of the Tiger Slayer Sect could not hold it anymore, and he said, "What now? Almost everyone thinks that we did this. Unless we can catch the culprit, there's nothing we can do to clear our name." Clear our name? Humph. Why does it need clearing? Said the sect leader of the Foursquare Library. Isn't this what we intended to do? And isn't it better now that someone has done it for us? The problem is that we didn't do it. The leader of the Tiger Slayer Sect sighed. And those people have completely destroyed the Constellation Sect's foundation in Qinghai. Do you think their headquarters in the east will let this matter rest easily? I heard that the old freak Constellation is an expert of the 9 Heavens realm. If he comes to Sky Fragrance Empire, even the Thousand Cranes Court cannot stop him, not to mention the three of us. The leader of the Foursquare Library snorted disapprovingly and said, "Old Freak Constellation will violate the iron rules set by the Holy Realm if he travels to another region. Even though he is an expert of the 9 Heavens realm, he cannot fight against the whole Holy Realm alone. As long as he can prove that we are the culprits, he will not be considered to be violating the Holy Realm's iron rules. But it was not done by us, so how is he going to prove that we are the culprits?" The leader of the Tiger Slayer Sect paused. He found that he could not reason with this scholar. These people who cultivated righteous energy were all tough nuts to crack, and they knew nothing about the worldly wisdom. He shook his head and turned to the leader of the Flying Sword Sect. "Brother Zhang, what do you think of this?" The leader of the Flying Sword Sect did not look toward the South Sea, but at the ground beneath where the Constellation Sect's warship had been. His face was grave as he said, "We may really be in huge trouble." "Why?" That startled the other two men, and they followed his gaze. "We need to quickly save those disciples of the Constellation Sect." The leader of the Flying Sword Sect cried out while breaking out in a cold sweat. "Someone is slaughtering them. If these disciples were killed, we will have to bear all the blames, and that old freak Constellation will surely come to settle the scores with us." The other two men were taken aback, and they sensed that the lives of the Constellation Sect's disciples were being taken away, one at a time. Hurriedly, they rushed out of the building. If those disciples were all killed, it was equivalent to the complete wipeout of the Constellation Sect's branch with the cruelest method of leaving no survivors. The sect leader of the Constellation sect would have all the reasons he needed to travel to another region without being punished with that. And when a martial sovereign of the Nine Heavens realm descended upon the south, even the three major empires of the south would not be able to stop him, not to mention three little sects. Inside the Thousand Cranes Court's Blueluan worship, an old man said with a solemn face, "Zhu Zhengqing, you're playing with fire. If you attract old freak Constellation here, who in the whole Sky Fragrance Empire can stop him?" Another old man, Zhu Zhengqing, wore a cold face as he snorted and said, "Elder Yang, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, destroying the Constellation sect's branch and attracting old freak Constellation here to get rid of the other sects for us. As long as nothing goes wrong, at least half of the profits in Qinghai will belong to the Thousand Cranes Court from today on." Elder Yang said angrily, "But the consequences are too serious. If old freak Constellation found out that we were the one who did this, even the court leader will not be able to protect you." Zhu Zhengqing sneered proudly. "You worry too much, Elder Yang. With the Flying Sword sect, Tiger Slayer sect, and Foursquare Library as the scapegoats, we will be safe. Fortune favors the bold. If we are so cowardly, how can we accomplish anything big?" Elder Yang shivered with anger, but there was nothing he could do, and he watched worriedly as the experts of the Thousand Cranes Court, their faces covered with clothes, killed the disciples of the Constellation sect down below. Yunxiao drove the Blueluan warship thousands of miles into the South Sea, and then he made it stop in midair over the water. It was quiet here, without any signs of people for tens of thousands of miles around. Duan Yu stood on the warship with a pale face, looking at the blue sky and sea. He felt a little unreal and he murmured to himself, "We've really robbed a Blueluan warship, how's this even possible?" He was seriously wounded by the explosion, and now he was sealed up again, so his cultivation base dropped back to that of a 7-stars martial grandmaster, which made his condition worse. His complexion was extremely unhealthy. But when he thought how easily the Blueluan warship, which he had been looking up to in the past, had been taken by them, he still felt like he was dreaming. He suddenly had a feeling that this young man in front of him was not a human being. Yunxiao was running back and forth in the warship, seemingly inspecting its condition, and his face grew uglier and uglier. Finally, he scolded, "What a posturing sect! If you are poor, don't play with such a high-end thing. Apart from hovering in midair and serving as a facade, I can't find anything useful from this warship." Duan Yu had already gotten used to all his scolding. "Didn't you fix the primary offensive and defensive arrays? Just that Prajna magic sound attack is enough to mark the value of this warship." Yunxiao glanced at him and said, "Do you know how many primordial crystals it cost me to open the shield and attack with the magic sound for 10 breaths? Looking at Duan Yu, who had a blank face, he said coldly, "The equivalent of 50,000 medial-grade primordial stones." That gave Duan Yu a fright, and he almost fell into the sea. "Are you kidding me? 50,000 medial-grade primordial stones were gone in such a short time. Does the array eat primordial stones or what? Fuck. I can't even earn that much with 1 year of hard work." Yunxiao stared at him and said, "Why else do you think it can be so powerful? A 6-tier warship can affect the flow of blood and qi and the mind of a martial emperor. Had it not been for a large amount of primordial qi it devoured, do you really think a martial emperor is so weak?" Duan Yu fell silent. A martial emperor of the 7 constellations realm was already a supreme existence in Sky Fragrance Empire. It was indeed a very heaven-defying fact that a 6-tier mystic artifact could disturb his mind. With that in mind, he thought it was reasonable for the warship to devour so many primordial stones in one shot. He looked up and glanced at the 6 alchemists, who stood timidly in a corner, as he frowned and said, "Young Master Yun, what are you going to do with them?" The 6 men were taken aback. One of them mustered his courage and said, "Please don't kill us. We are all 3rd-tier alchemists, and you may need us." In the past, Duan Yu might have thought these 6 people were priceless, but since he witnessed how freakish Yunxiao was, no other alchemist could attract his attention. While frowning, he said, "Will there be any trouble if we spare their lives? They are from the Constellation sect after all." Yunxiao said, "Don't worry. They are familiar with this worship and I can use them. The most important thing now is how we are going to restore this worship. He thought for a moment with his eyes gleaming, and then he murmured to himself, "It seems that I can only look for them." Them? Duan Yu said doubtfully. Who are they? Who has the ability to repair a Blueluan warship? The Thunderwind Trading Company, who is second only to the Myriad Treasure Store in strength in the Commerce Alliance and bold enough to accept any business. Thunderwind Trading Company? Duan Yu's eyes grew wide as he said in surprise. There is a Thunderwind Trading Company in Skyfragrance Empire. But isn't it just a small trading company? I remember its front door is only as wide as a man's shoulder, and it only has 1 or 2 workers. And it doesn't seem to have any business all year long. Yun Xiao looked at him as if he were an idiot and said, "Their branches look like that all over the continent. Do they have to build a grand building to be a huge trading company?" Duan Yu had already become accustomed to his cocky manner. "And you said they are bold enough to accept any business? I think that is an exaggeration. If someone asks them to kill the martial sovereign tyrant, Ao Changkong, will they accept it?" Yun Xiao snorted coldly. "Of course they will, but no one can afford the price. It will take at least 100 million supreme-grade primordial stones to kill Ao Changkong. Moreover, all business with the Thunderwind Trading Company must be paid in advance." Duan Yu's mouth dropped open. That was just another way of refusing to accept the business. He wondered what the Thunderwind Trading Company would do if someone really came out with 100 million supreme-grade primordial stones. Yun Xiao glanced at the sea and pointed at an island ahead. "We'll land on that island. The Blueluan warship is too huge, and it can't be put inside a storage ring. I'll lay out an array on the island and hide it temporarily. After that, we will go to find the people of the Thunderwind Trading Company." Soon, the warship was driven over the island. Yun Xiao studied the terrain and then called the 6 alchemists down and taught them how to lay down the array. An array that could hide such a large object was beyond the knowledge of the 6 alchemists. Their eyes gleamed as they listened to Yun Xiao's teaching and absorbed the knowledge hungrily. Arrays were the foundation of the Tao of alchemy, because any kind of refining required a continuous supply of energy through arrays. So, a senior alchemist was definitely an array master as well. But there were also those who were not interested in the Tao of alchemy and focused solely on the Tao of arrays. Martial Sovereign Teng Guang, who was given the title of throne by the Holy Realm and ranked the 7th on the Heaven and Earth power chart, was a peerless master of arrays. If he were given enough time to construct an array, he could attract the law of the world and pour the power of the earth, mountains, rivers, the sun, the moon, and stars into it, trapping all the other top 9 martial sovereigns at the same time. The array Yun Xiao wanted to build was just a simple cover-up array, which could erase the spatial influence of the Blueluan warship and make no one notice it. If he could recover his strength of a 9th-tier alchemy sovereign, he would be able to rip the void with an array and pull the warship inside. In this way, even a martial sovereign would not be able to find it. Soon, an array over 100 meters wide was laid down, filled with numerous primordial stones. The island, together with the Blueluan warship over it, gradually became blurry, as if the void was distorted, and then disappeared slowly. The 6 alchemists were filled with a sense of accomplishment. They had been in great awe of Yun Xiao ever since he repaired the warship's primary offensive and defensive arrays. They knew he must be an existence far superior to them in the Tao of alchemy. In just one day, they had learned more from him than they had studied in a year. "I've been out for more than half a month. I wonder how Yenwu is now." Yun Xiao was a little worried. He took out a blue wolf chariot, and the 8 of them sped in the direction of the Firecrow Empire. The 6 alchemists were nervous, but their lives were no longer their own now. They guessed they could only follow Yun Xiao from then on. In fact, they felt a little bit of joy in their hearts, hoping that they could progress further in the Tao of alchemy. A day later, the blue wolf chariot drove into the realm of Firecrow. Duan Yu asked abruptly, "Lad, who exactly are you? Can you tell me now?" That was the biggest question in his mind. Looking at a large city in the distance, Yun Xiao chuckled and said, "I'm the city lord of Yenwu, a city in the state of Tianshui. which is an upper state attached to the Firecrow Empire. Duan Yu did not believe that. He arched his eyebrow and said, "The city lord in a vassal state? Do you take me for a fool? Given your strength, talent, and your age of 15 years, if you are not the disciple of some superpower, I'll lop my head off and let you sit on it." He began to guess. The strongest sect in Firecrow is the Jutian sect, followed by the Heartbroken Mountain and the Heavenly Pearls sect. I guess you are probably a disciple of the Jutian sect. It is said that their sect leader, Qifeng, has stepped into the 8 Desolation realm, and his master is the martial sovereign Hua Qianshu. In the whole Firecrow Empire, only the Jutian sect can cultivate an inhuman disciple like you. Yun Xiao smiled faintly and said, "I do have some kind of relationship with the Jutian sect. Hua Qianshu was his first disciple, and that meant Qifeng was his disciple's disciple." "Ha! I knew it." Duan Yu finally felt proud and elated for once. He said happily, "Tell me, what's your relationship with the Jutian sect?" "The relationship is, I know them, but they don't know me." Duan Yu gave him a look of contempt as he snorted coldly and said, "I don't believe that." "You don't believe it?" Yun Xiao glanced at him and said meaningfully, "Then would you believe if I said Qifeng is my disciple's disciple?" That took Duan Yu aback. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "Lad, you are really bold to say that. If this were heard by the Jutian sect, I fear you would be ripped into pieces in the next moment. Now that I've decided to follow you, I'll know your roots sooner or later." "Humph. Let's see how you're going to deny it when the time comes." In the city of Yanwu, the city lord's mansion had been reduced to ruins. Amidst the ruins stood the crude pill pagoda, unharmed. Dozens of people looked nervously at an old man in front of them, who wore fiery red clothes. With his eyes fixed at the pill pagoda, the old man suddenly threw out a punch, which burst into a large fireball and smashed onto the pagoda. But a golden light emerged and blocked the flame. "You, come over here." The old man pointed to a one-armed man in the crowd, his face unsightly as he said, "What's going on with this pagoda?" The one-armed man walked up nervously while shivering. My lord, I have no idea." The old man frowned, and that made the one-armed man fall backward and crawl back into the crowd in panic. "It's Li Yunxiao, it's all Li Yunxiao's work. My lord, as long as you capture Li Yunxiao, everything will be explained." The one-armed man pulled a long face and began to wail. The man was Li Yi. After the treasure he intended to steal in the Supreme Palace was seized by Yunxiao, he had been nursing grievances, thinking all day about how he could reveal the truth to everyone, so that Ma Tianhe and his son could find Yunxiao to settle the scores. Just when he thought of a perfect plan, the old man who called himself Xingyang suddenly appeared. Without saying anything, he attacked and slaughtered more than half of the Supreme Palace's disciples, and then tortured Ma Tianhe and his son for 3 days and 3 nights before killing them. By the time Ma Tianhe and his son died, they had not been able to figure out who had framed them. Not only did they lose everything in the square tower, but now they also lost their property and their lives. After Xingyang killed the father and son, he did not get the answer he wanted, and he was still furious. Just when he was about to level the whole Supreme Palace, Li Yi realized what was going on and an idea came to him. So he blamed everything on Yunxiao. He did not know if Yunxiao was the one who wiped out the Xingyang family, but at least he saw Yunxiao frame Xingyang Ming with his own eyes, and he guessed there must be some grudges between them. By blaming everything on Yunxiao, not only would it keep him alive for a while, but it would also bring Yunxiao a great enemy. He could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Later, Xingyang took Li Yi and the remaining disciples, about a dozen of them, to Yanwu. After searching the city and not finding Yunxiao, he flew into a rage and destroyed the whole city lord mansion with 1 punch. That was when he found the strange pill pagoda, which was unharmed under his powerful attack. "Get out of my sight, you piece of crap," Xingyang said with a cold snort. He glanced at the dozen of people and said, "I want you scum to search the whole city and bring me all the beautiful girls between the ages of 10 and 20 now. If anyone dares to flee from the city, I'll kill you." The whole Xingyang family was wiped out, save for him. Now, in addition to revenge, he had another important task, which was to populate his family. He could not let the line of the Xingyang family be cut off. He had already planned and prepared to bed several girls in a day to bring himself more descendants. With his present cultivation base, he was only one step away from the 7 constellations realm. As long as he could cross the threshold in the next few years, he could live for another 200 years at least. So, as long as he worked harder, it was not an impossible dream to make the Xingyang family flourish again before he died. The disciples of Supreme Palace thought he wanted them to search for Yunxiao, and they were struck dumb when they heard what he really wanted. But soon, they quickly spread out into the city, as if they had been given an imperial pardon. Li scrambled to his feet and wanted to run away, but Xinyanghua glanced at him and said coldly, "You stay." It was like a basin of cold water pouring down, which chilled the other's heart instantly, and he could only stand on the side in fear and wait carefully. Xinyanghua walked around the pill pagoda, and then he gave a cry, repeatedly pushing his palms forward and throwing out streams of fire. Soon, a sea of flames engulfed the whole pagoda, slowly burning it. In response, a golden light opened up from the pagoda, forming a shield and blocking the flames. Xinyanghua frowned and gave a cold snort as said to himself, "Let's see how long you can hold on. My blue lotus earth fire will not die off and can burn for 1 whole year. I don't believe you can last that long." He thought Yunxiao was hiding inside the pagoda and was using an array to defend against the flames. Such a strong defense cost a lot of primordial stones, so although he could not break it now, as long as he burned it long enough until the energy was depleted, the people inside would have to face their death. He simply sat cross-legged down and closed his eyes to rest right in front of the burning pagoda. Meanwhile, all that made Li suffer. The blazing fire almost charred his skin, but he dared not walk away, so he could only resist it with his energy. However, his energy was draining fast. Thousands of miles up, a dozen warriors stood in the air, looking down silently. They were divided into 2 groups. The 3 men at the front were Zhu Jin, Xianpai, and Aodijia, while the rest behind them were the experts sent by the various aristocratic families of Firecrow Empire. Their cultivation base was much weaker than the 3 men in front, so they dared not to come forward. They had been following behind Xinyanghua, wanting to see the ending. Even when the Supreme Palace was wiped out, they watched from afar without doing anything. Xinyanghua knew he had been followed by this group of people, and although he was angry, there was nothing he could do. Zhu Jin crossed his arms over his chest as he stroked his chin and frowned while saying, "There's indeed something strange about this city of Yanwu. What do you think is the array inside that little pagoda? I can't believe it can resist Xingyanghua's blue lotus earth fire and block our divine senses. It's extraordinary." Xianpai was suspicious too. He squinted at the pagoda, but he could not see through it. "Did the city lord of Yanwu really wipe out the Xingyang family?" he said doubtfully. "This is absurd. Even the imperial family of Tianshui doesn't have this kind of strength." But the pagoda. The pill pagoda was only 4 to 5 meters tall and about a dozen meters in circumference. It was built to hide the divine realm tablet, so its appearance was ugly and had no sense of aesthetics. No one would have expected that there was a space mystic artifact inside. After all, this kind of thing was so rare that even the imperial family of the Firecrow Empire had never seen one before. Therefore, everyone thought the pagoda was supported by an array. With an uncertain look on his face, Aodijia said softly, "I wonder what is the maximum range this array can defend. The pagoda is really ugly, but there must be something very important inside. Otherwise, it would not be protected by an array like this. From what I can tell, this array is comparable to those small mountain protection arrays." His words immediately set the others thinking. If this array could be enlarged, its value was immeasurable. Xingyanghua's blue lotus earth fire was almost as strong as an attack of a genuine martial emperor, and yet it could not destroy the pagoda's array. If they could have the array as their courtyard protection array, then the defense of their whole families would be strengthened. And when they were struck by calamities similar to that of the Xingyang family, they would not be wiped out in an instant. At the thought of that, the eyes of those experts from various aristocratic families lit up, and they stared unblinkingly down below, waiting for the result. Although Xianxia's eyes were closed, he was extremely shocked inside. The blue lotus earth fire had been refined by him, and like a warrior's mystic weapon, they were already spiritually connected. At that moment, he clearly sensed that under the burning of his earth fire, the pagoda was not damaged at all. If I had this array, my family would not have been wiped out. Xianxia ground his teeth in hatred. I must get my hands on this array. He looked up and glanced at the sky, his face gloomy. Sooner or later, I'll play each of these bastards to death. He produced an incantation seal and threw it into the blazing earth fire. The flames soared, and their color grew brighter. Suddenly, a dark cloud swept over the sky, blocking the sunlight a little. Who goes there? Startled, Xianxia looked up, and his divine sense exploded out. He saw a little blue wolf chariot, and then a beam of light fell out of it. A strange young face appeared in front of him. The young man's eyes gleamed like stars, and his body exuded a fierce killing intent that made even Xianxia, a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster, shiver. Thousands of miles up, Zhu Jin's pupils constricted abruptly as he cried out, "It's him!" Aodijia and Xianpai were startled while Zhu Jin said incredulously, "It's this young man. Is he really from Yanwu?" After that, he murmured to himself, "What a cunning young man." He brought all our eyes to the Supreme Palace, who was unlucky enough to be inexplicably wiped out. Aodijia flexed his neck, his eyes flickering as he said, "I wonder if this Supreme Palace has anything to do with those major sects in the north. I'm worried that this is going to have a huge impact and give northerners an excuse to cross the region, and then we will be in great trouble." Xianpai wore an indifferent face, and no one could tell his current mood. He just said coldly, "The source of this incident is this young man, and it is Xianxia who destroyed the Supreme Palace. What does it have anything to do with Firecrow Empire?" His attitude was clear. If something serious really happened, they would just push the responsibility onto these two people. The martial grandmasters of the various aristocratic families were looking down in surprise as well. Among them were 2 elders of the Zhou family, Zhou Chu and Zhou Xing, and they were shocked and suspicious. Yanwu had been under the watch of the Zhou family, and according to the recent investigation, the cauldron of 5 elements auctioned by the Myriad Treasure Store was most likely robbed by Yanwu. But they found it hard to believe the finding. Even though the Myriad Treasure Store was rumored to be behind Yanwu, it was impossible for them to offend the Zhou family for a mere cauldron of 5 elements. The elder of the Cheng family, Cheng He, was astonished as well. With a strange look in his eyes, he glanced at Zhou Chu and Zhou Xing. The 3 of them exchanged a look, and they were all astonished and felt it hard to believe. How could a mere Yanwu offend 2 major aristocratic families at the same time? Had it not been for what happened to the Xingyang family being too strange, which struck fear into all aristocratic families and prevented them from doing anything rashly, the Cheng family would have sent someone to destroy Yanwu. Now, it seemed that things were indeed not as simple as they imagined. "Who are you, boy?" Xianxia asked in a deep voice. His face looked ferocious in the flickering light of the flames. Li Yi, who was almost roasted through, looked up in pain, and then he immediately jumped to his feet as if he were struck by a bolt of lightning. "Li Yunxiao, my lord. He is Li Yunxiao, the city lord of Yanwu, Li Yunxiao." Up in the sky, Zhu Jin's heart twitched violently, and his face grew solemn. Although he had suspected this when he saw Yunxiao show up, he was still shocked to hear Li Yi confirm it. The others felt the same. Yunxiao fell into the flames with a cold face. The roaring blue lotus earth fire seemed unable to hurt him, and was even showing signs of retreat. An icy cold voice came out of his mouth. "Who are you?" Xianxia was shocked. His blue lotus earth fire was a strange fire of the heaven and earth, extremely brutal and powerful, and even a martial emperor dared not take it head-on. It was in order to refine this fire seed that he neglected his cultivation base. Otherwise, he would have stepped into the 7 constellations realm. However, after refining the fire, even a 1-star martial emperor would not dare to fight him. But This boy was just a one-star martial lord, so how could he resist his strange fire? Yunxiao's body sizzled and burned in the blue lotus earth fire, but he was unharmed. A flaming cloud flashed between his eyebrows, vivid and lifelike. Meanwhile, the flames around him moved away from him as if they had met something extremely frightful, forming a layer of vacuum. My lord. He's the one who destroyed the Xingyang family and framed the supreme palace. Li Yi gnashed his teeth and roared. It was all Li Yunxiao's fault. He not only caused me to lose my wealth and glory, my arm, and all the treasures that should be mine, but even made me suffer here. I wish I could bite him to death. When Li Yi saw a vacuum zone appear around Yunxiao, he thought it was Xingyang's deliberate action, for fear of burning Yunxiao to death and not getting the answer. So he hurriedly said, My lord, this boy is very cunning. Kill him now to avenge everyone. Even the others in the sky thought that Xinyanghua had deliberately created a vacuum zone so as to not kill Yunxiao directly. Do I need you to teach me what to do? Get out of my sight. Xinyanghua snapped angrily and glared at Li Yi. A stream of fire immediately transformed into a fist, smashing toward Li Yi. Extreme cold energy. Li Yi was scared out of his wits, and he hastily rotated his energy to the maximum speed. Boom! Under the impact of the flaming fist, all his extreme cold energy defense was shattered in an instant, and he was knocked back with flames burning all over, rolling and tumbling for a few streets before coming to a stop. Luckily, he did not die. He was in such great pain that he rolled and struggled violently on the ground. But the blue lotus earth fire was not that easy to extinguish. He hurriedly rotated his extreme cold energy, and surprisingly, he managed to control the flames, causing it to weaken slowly. The extreme cold energy was modified from the Beiming Dark Energy, the ultimate cultivation technique of the Beiming Dark Palace, who was a super sect in the north. So it was very powerful. Although blue lotus earth fire was not easy to be extinguished, under the washing of the energy, it began to weaken. However, Li Yi was almost burnt to coke. Xinyanghua was extremely shocked. His blue lotus earth fire was not forced away by some power, but fleeing with fear. He had refined the fire for many years, and they were already spiritually connected, so he could sense the fear in the flames. It was like when a commoner saw a lofty sovereign and dared not to resist. That startled him and made him gasp. It was the first time that such a situation had occurred, so he asked cautiously, I'm Xinyanghua. Did you destroy my family? The people above felt strange, wondering why Xinyanghua suddenly became so accommodating. When he was at the Supreme Palace, he did not say anything before he attacked and slaughtered everyone. But then, they thought he must have calmed down due to extreme anger. Only heaven knew what kind of storm would come next. So, you are an old dog from the Xingyang family. I can't believe there is one still alive. A cold light burst out of Yunxiao's eyes, and the flaming cloud between his eyebrows almost jumped out of him. The surrounding flames seemed to be affected by that as they moved backward again, almost returning to where Xinyanghua was. In the face of the Phoenix True Flame, all other flames would have to retreat. Xinyanghua was startled, but he flew into a rage at the same time. It's you. What animosity do you and the Xingyang family have? Why did you do this to my family? You kill one of my people. I destroy your whole family. His words astounded all the experts in the sky. Li Yi, who was healing himself in the distance, stared at Yunxiao in terror with his eyes widened. Although they were both martial lords, he felt the gap between them grow greater and greater. Ever since Yunxiao was a warrior, he had not taken him seriously. Now that both of them were martial lords, Yunxiao's domineering aura pricked his eyes, and he realized that he was not even qualified to look him in the eye. A monstrous resentment and hatred rose in Li Yi's heart, and he cursed, hoping Yunxiao would be slapped to death by Xinyanghua. What a presumptuous boy! Xinyanghua was so angry that he laughed. Who do you think you are? Yunxiao's killing intent did not diminish, and his voice grew colder. You are the last old dog left in the Xingyang family. In a short while, the Xingyang family will be completely wiped out of the continent. You are looking for death. Xingyanghua's nostrils flared. He had an unrealistic feeling at the thought that his family, which had been standing strong for over 1,000 years in Firecrow Empire, was inexplicably destroyed by a young man. He was more willing to accept if it were destroyed by the Supreme Palace. After I burn you to ashes, I'll refine this pagoda, open it, and flay every person that is close to you. With both hands, Xianxia kept drawing circles. Flames rolled and spat around him, and they soon formed into a huge fireball, which he lifted over his head and flung down. The fireball was so huge that it measured some 30 meters wide. Falling like the sun, it burned off everything in the surroundings in a flash. Explode! Flaming meteor shower! Xianxia performed an incantation gesture with one hand and cried out. With that, the fireball blew apart with a boom, splitting into thousands of fireballs and falling like a meteor shower. All the experts in the sky held their breaths and concentrated on the attack. The flames were so strong that even they could feel waves of heat from thousands of miles above. The power of the attack was definitely not weaker than that of a one-star martial emperor. It seemed that Xianxia's decision of neglecting his cultivation base and refining the Blue Lotus Earth fire in seclusion was correct. With the help of this strange fire of the heaven and earth, it would be very easy for him to become a martial emperor. And by that time, ordinary martial emperors would be no match for him at all. As the blazing flames came whistling down, an idea suddenly struck Xianxia. A force began to surge in his spiritual ocean, and he suddenly gave a loud cry as he bent his body forward and stretched out his arms to both sides. The divine realm tablet next to him was connected with his heart, and a deeper insight came to his spiritual ocean. Attracted by the strange fire of heaven and earth, the divine fire in the depths of his soul burned fiercer, and his whole spiritual ocean suddenly turned into a sea of flames, which were about to break out of his body through the flaming cloud between his eyebrows. Xianxia's expression changed drastically. Even with the divine realm tablet nourishing his soul power, the sea of flames in his spiritual ocean was out of his control. If they rushed out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Roar! He threw his head back and roared, forcibly suppressing the flames in his spiritual ocean. All of a sudden, his whole body turned red and his blood seemed to be on fire. With the roar, the flaming meteor shower that blotted out the sky seemed to halt for a brief moment before it smashed down with immense fear. However, it no longer had the mighty aura, and seemed to intentionally avoid Xianxia, only exploding around him and turning into a sea of flames that burned the ground. No one noticed this subtle detail, but it deeply shocked Xianxia. He was spiritually connected with the Blue Lotus Earth fire, so he naturally could sense the fear and shock that came from the depths of the soul. Strange fire. He also has a strange fire of the heaven and earth in his body. Xianxia's eyes grew wide with excitement. He practiced fire element cultivation techniques all his life and was exposed to countless fires. The Blue Lotus Earth fire was already a very strong strange fire of the heaven and earth, but the level of the strange fire inside Xianxia must be far greater than it. This extraordinary object of heaven and earth is not what a mere martial lord like you can own. His figure flashed, and he rushed inside the sea of flames in the next moment while roaring ferociously. Let's see what kind of existence is hiding inside your body. Amidst the blazing flames was a vacuum zone. Xianxia was struggling with a painful look on his face. He had used all his strength to suppress the phoenix true flame in him, but to no avail, and his tyrant body was showing signs of melting under the flames, with heat waves rushing out of his skin from time to time. This is when Xianxia rushed into the sea of flames and sensed Xianxia's aura. His pupils constricted abruptly. It was a powerful ancient aura that filled his heart with a chill. Even though he was inside a sea of fire, he did not feel warm at all. An ancient divine fire, this kind of feeling. I can't believe it is actually an essence inherited from the ancient times. He became incoherent with excitement. You don't deserve such a rare treasure of the heaven and earth. Give me the fire at once. He wanted to seize the fire, but he was intimidated by the aura, and he did not dare to go forward. There was a painful look in Xianxia's eyes. Suddenly, They burst with a light while the flaming cloud between his eyebrows appeared, with the ancient essence of a true fire rippling out of it. Joe! A faint bird cry, which sounded as if it came from ancient times, echoed through the sea of fire. In that instant, the blazing blue lotus earth fire cooled down, as if it was sprinkled with water. The flames were still burning, but their temperature seemed to have dropped below 0 degrees. Xianxia halted in place. Spiritually connected with the blue lotus earth fire, he also felt the chill at the same time. It was not a chill emanated from his foe, but a chill produced from the tremendous fear inside the blue lotus earth fire's spiritual sense. What exactly is it? How could it make my strange fire so scared? Xianxia widened his eyes as he struggled to resist the fear that came from the depths of his soul. The earth fire's spiritual sense was severely damaged, which directly affected his mind, and he was devoured by fear in an instant. What frightened him even more was that with the bird cry ringing out, a dreamlike, barely visible fire came roaring out from between Xianxia's eyebrows. It rushed into his body and instantly burned more than half of his energy. He felt as if he had fallen into a hell of fire and was about to burst into flames. This is... Paying no mind to the serious injury in his body, Xianxia's eyes turned glassy for a moment and his pupils constricted. He finally remembered what was the beautiful illusory thing he saw just now. He jumped into the air as if he were struck by a bolt of lightning and cried out, "I can't believe it is. Let me take care of him." A sigh fell from the sky and broke Xianxia's voice. Meanwhile, a beam of light fell out of the blue wolf chariot, and in the blink of an eye, Duanyu landed in front of Xianxia with an indifferent face, his heavenly halberd behind his back. Puke! Xianxia coughed out a mouthful of blood. After the ancient phoenix essence rushed out of the flaming cloud, the flames inside his spiritual ocean calmed down, and were controlled by him and pushed back into his soul. But his whole body was severely wounded. He could not help but cough out a mouthful of blood as he took a few steps back before managing to regulate his aura. Ever since he got the Phoenix Divine Fire, he had tried countless times to control it, hoping he could at least condense a wisp of real Phoenix flame outside his body. But all his attempts ended in failure. When he helped the Kunwu Divine Tree be reborn in the depths of the South Sea, he tried controlling the Divine Fire for the first time, and he felt it to be so handy. That rekindled his ambition to control the Divine Fire. That was why he made Duanyu stay inside the chariot while he came down alone. After all, there were too many experts in the sky, and a 2-stars martial emperor was definitely a very strong trump card. He did not wish to expose it too early, but he did not expect that he would fail to control it. Only now did he realize that when he was in the South Sea, it was because of the tremendous amount of spirit chi poured into him by the Kunwu Divine Tree that he was able to control the Divine Fire. And even so, he had to pay the price of rebirth at the same time. A divine object inherited from ancient times was indeed not that simple. He reckoned that without the strength of a martial sovereign, he would not be able to control it. "You? Who are you?" Xianxia was taken aback. Duanyu's strength of a 7-stars martial grandmaster did not put him on his guard. Even though he was severely wounded now, it would only take him minutes to take care of this man. Xianxia was who he feared the most now. But in a flash, Duanyu performed an incantation gesture with one hand and recited a spell, and his aura suddenly began to rise, breaking into the 7 constellations realm within a few breaths. A martial emperor. A 2-stars martial emperor. It was that moment when Xianxia got a serious fright. He sucked in a breath as he took a few steps back and said in horror, "Who exactly are you?" Under his control, the surrounding flames retracted into his body, quickly repairing his meridians and flesh that were burned by the illusory phoenix true flame. A strange fire was magical. It could not only attack, but also nourish the body and meridians and heal wounds. As the flames disappeared, the situation on the ground immediately revealed to all eyes. Although those experts sensed something strange about Xianxia just now, they were not uncertain. Now, when they saw he was blackened and covered in wounds, with specks of blood on his chest, they thought he was injured by Xianxia's blue lotus earth fire, and they all looked surprised. With only the cultivation base of a one-star martial lord, Yunxiao survived the earth fire, which made these experts feel incredible. But then they were astonished, because the aura emanated from Duan Yu was pressing on their chests like a great mountain, making it difficult for them to breathe. A 2-stars martial emperor. Xian Pai's pupils constricted with a shocked look on his face. Zhu Jin and Aodijia also looked at each other in horror. Under this southern sky, all martial emperors were like overlords. Who is this man? Why have I never met him before? The expression on Zhu Jin's face was extremely serious. They basically knew all the famous martial emperors. Odijia shook his head and said lightly, "He'd better be a hermit of some sect. I'm just worried." Everyone understood what he meant. What they worried the most was that the experts of the other 3 regions had come to their region. The heavenly martial continent was divided into 4 regions, and the overall strength of the south was the weakest. They simply could not compete with the other 3 regions. Outside the 4 major regions were other transcendental places, and common people had no idea where they were. The Holy Realm that nominally ruled the heavenly martial continent was an example. Most people only knew that such a place existed, but few knew exactly where it was. And then there was the Sea of Soul Formation. Only when an alchemist reached the 7th tier and went to a corresponding place would someone guide him there. Xian Pai had an uncertain look on his face. He gazed at Duan Yu and said coldly, "No matter where this man comes from, Yanwu is no longer simple. Previously, I heard that it was backed by Myriad Treasure Store, but they already denied it, and I don't think they are lying. In that case, who is behind Yanwu?" There was a cold glint in Aodija's eyes as he said, "Now that Mount Meru is about to open, there is no room for any mishaps. Why don't we go down to capture this man and interrogate him?" Xian Pai's face turned serious as he said, "No, we can't do that. Yes, Mount Meru is about to open and the other 3 regions are eyeing it covetously. But they have not done anything too over the top. If there are powers that want to push their way in, they'll want us to be in trouble, and the bigger the better so that they can have a chance. As long as we don't move, no one dares to go against the Holy Realm's iron rules blatantly." "Humph! Iron rules, my ass," Aodijia said discontentedly. "Although no one dares to do it blatantly, whenever the mountain opens, there are always disciples of those superpowers. Damn it!" Xian Pai glanced at him and said, "How can there be absolute fairness in this world? It is already very good to maintain it on the surface. From today on, put Yanwu on the watch list. As long as they don't create trouble, let them be. We will come back to it after Mount Meru is opened." The 3 of them stopped talking, looking down coldly and letting the matter run its own course. Meanwhile, the elders of the aristocratic families behind them looked solemn, especially Zhou Chu and Zhou Xing from the Zhou family, and Cheng He from the Cheng family. The 3 of them exchanged a look with deep anxiety and fear. Down below, Duan Yu gave Xianxia a look and said indifferently, "You are about to die, so why do you want to know so much?" He pointed a finger at the sky, and his heavenly halberd immediately floated up into the air, crazily absorbing the surrounding primordial qi and exuding a shocking power. Looking coldly at Xianxia, he said, "You have an amazing fire. Give it to me, and I'll spare you an intact body." "What?" That startled Xianxia, and he took a few steps back. He could not believe this man was eyeing his blue lotus earth fire. "I know you're trying to buy yourself time, but even if you recover from all your injuries, you have no chance of winning." Duan Yu's eyes grew cold as he pointed his finger downward and cried out, "The heavenly halberd, white flame ghost kill." Having fully absorbed the primordial qi, the halberd turned its tip and shot through the air toward Xianxia. "You want my blue lotus earth fire? I'm not scared of you, even though you are a 2-stars martial emperor." Xianxia's eyes burned with rage. He leaped and ducked the halberd as a ball of flame jumped out between his palms, compressing rapidly. Instead of retreating, he rushed up toward Duan Yu. Tisk tsk. Xianxia is truly a seasoned warrior. He is so calm even in the face of a 2-stars martial emperor. Up in the sky, a hint of an amusing smile brushed Aodija's lips as he praised, "Chief Xian, Do you think he has any chance of winning? Xianxia was expressionless, and he just said lightly, there is always a chance in a crisis, but they are one major realm apart. Unless his foe is an inexperienced newbie, he is going to have a hard time. Duan Yu hunted sea beasts in the South Sea every day. In terms of combat experience, he was definitely above everyone except Yun Xiao. A flying moth darts into the fire. Duan Yu made no secret of his contempt. He put his palms together and performed an incantation gesture before pushing it out. A blue light spread out like a lake, giving off a calming serenity, and the whole void seemed to have become the surface of a lake, splitting the sky into two halves. Xianxia was taken aback. Although Duan Yu's move was not strong, it was an authentic water element martial technique, combined with his higher cultivation base. It perfectly suppressed the former's fire. Yun Xiao was slightly surprised that Duan Yu would use this move. His strongest martial technique was undoubtedly fire-related, but his white scorching flame was obviously not comparable to the blue lotus earth fire. Therefore, instead of using it, he might as well use a water element martial technique which he was not familiar with. He clearly relied on his higher-level cultivation base to directly suppress Xianxia. Moreover, water element martial techniques were gentle, and their lethality was not strong. He could avoid killing Xianxia directly, giving him time to extract the blue lotus earth fire. Yun Xiao was surprised. He did not expect this foolish-looking guy to have such rich combat experience and intuition. Up in the sky, Xianxia frowned as he sighed and said, this man is definitely a battle-hardened expert. Xianxia has no chance of winning. Even if I have to die, I will drag you to hell with me. The pressure from the gap between their cultivation bases kept him in check as Xianxia fell into despair. A gleam of sadness flashed through his eyes as he bellowed, if you want the blue lotus earth fire, come and get it from me in my grave. All of a sudden, a white light burst out of his chest while rings of flames spread out and rushed into the blue lake, causing a large amount of water vapor to sizzle and boil. Meanwhile, the whole void began to sway. Xianxia laughed wildly and said, ha, let the whole city die with me. Not good. He's going to self-detonate with the blue lotus earth fire. Zhu Jin said shockingly. The self-detonation of a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster with the blue lotus earth fire will certainly drown the whole Yanwu in a sea of flames. Under the heat waves rose to the sky, Aodija's face looked blurry. He snorted coldly and said, what does this have anything to do with us? There was a complicated look in his eyes as he said faintly, a pity that we can't have a look at the array inside that pagoda. Xianxia wore a gloomy face and seemed to agree as well. Although the whole of Yanwu was about to fall into flames, and every person in the city would most likely die, in the eyes of these experts, it was no different from the killing of ants in an entire city. Just when Xianxia went crazy, a disdainful voice came into his ears. What makes you think you deserve to let the whole city die with you? That gave Xianxia a pause. He followed the voice and saw Yun Xiao looking contemptuously at him. He froze and saw a pair of blood-red eyes. His head went abuzz suddenly, and he lost his consciousness for a brief moment. Not good. It's a spiritual attack. He woke almost instantly, and he stared at Yun Xiao in horror, his inner shock beyond measure. But what made him even more despairing was when he saw Duan Yu thrust a fist at him and smash it straight into his chest. The blue lotus earth fire, which was spiritually connected with him and had become extremely violent, was controlled by the hand right inside his body. You! Xianxia let out a roar of despair. I cannot accept this. Boom! His body exploded in an instant. Although the self-detonation of a peak 9 stars martial grandmaster was powerful, it would not cause widespread damage. Duan Yu rotated his energy and withstood the explosion, causing his body to be seriously injured. But he dared not dodge because the blue lotus earth fire was still under his control in his palm. If he failed to suppress it and caused it to explode together with Xianxia, the consequences would be unimaginable. What happened? Why did Xianxia suddenly halt for a brief moment at the last minute and give that man a chance? Aodija's pupils constricted as he asked with great bewilderment. Xianxia and Zhu Jin looked blank too. as they were both lost in deep thought. They also could not understand what had just happened. It was impossible for Xianxia to stand there unmoving for no reason. Zhu Jin sighed and said with a wry smile, "If we want to know the answer, I think we have to ask Xianxia." Meanwhile, Xian Pai's eyes burst with a gleam as he stared at the blue lotus earth fire in Duan Yu's hand. His face flickered, which clearly showed that he was struggling on the inside. Eodija glanced at him and chuckled. "Why? Are you tempted? Are you going to kill all the people down below and take the strange fire for yourself, or keep watching from here?" Well, the value of this blue lotus earth fire is not lesser than an ordinary mystic treasure. If you take it and refine it, you may advance a star in your cultivation base directly. After listening to what he said, Xian Pai's face relaxed, and he became extremely calm. With a faint voice he said, "Humph! I'm not cultivating fire element martial techniques. The time it will take me to refine the blue lotus earth fire is enough for me to advance one star myself. It seems that this man has no problem subduing the fire. The incident of the Xingyang family finally has a result, and the stone pressed on everyone's mind has been lifted. Let's leave now." But Xian Pai's eyes became somewhat distant as he said lightly, "Mount Meru is about to open, and I hope everyone will continue to be on your guard and not let anything go wrong. There must be a reason for Yanwu's sudden rise. I hope aristocratic families that have problems with Yanwu can exercise a little restraint and try not to provoke them, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. Although it is not easy for a 1,000-year-old aristocratic family to fall, when it does, it may only take a blink of an eye. The Xingyang family is a perfect example." After saying that, he glanced at the Zhou family and the Cheng family, and then gradually disappeared into the void. Zhu Jin and Aodijia also gave the crowd a look, and then disappeared together. The elders of the Zhou family and the Cheng family saw the glances and shivered. After the crowd dispersed, the three of them discussed secretly for a while with gloomy faces before flying back. After grabbing the blue lotus earth fire, Duan Yu mustered all his strength to suppress it and slowly absorbed it into his body. At the moment, he was already severely wounded from Xianxia's self-detonation. But if he did not take the opportunity to absorb the fire, it would be very difficult for him to suppress it. After all, once he let it go, the strange fire would fly back to the boundless heaven and earth, almost impossible to be found again. He sucked in a breath and opened his mouth to swallow the strange fire. Immediately, he turned red all over and fell to the ground, struggling in pain. The air rang with his miserable screams. Looking at the pain on his face, Yunxiao called out to the lonely blue wolf chariot in the air. "Come down, all 6 of you, and do your best to suppress the strange fire for him." 6 figures immediately fell from the chariot. They glanced around in fear as they surrounded Duan Yu and exerted their strong soul power to suppress the strange fire in him. It did not help much, but it could greatly alleviate his pain. At that moment, all the people in the sky were gone, and even Li Yi was nowhere to be found. When he saw Duan Yu's pain was gradually alleviated, Yunxiao breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled at the pill pagoda as he threw out a few incantation seals and went inside directly. The Divine Realm Tablet was a mystic artifact spiritually connected with Yunxiao. Although he had not fully refined it yet, he could somewhat sense the things inside. As soon as he went inside, he appeared over Mount Inch. The area below him was full of life and spirit chi, unaffected by the outside world. He could also sense numerous warriors training in a few places in the distance. "Young Master Yun, you're back." Suddenly, someone called out in surprise from down below while waving his hand. Yunxiao glanced at the man as he chuckled and flew down to the ground. "Oh, you've advanced to the 3rd tier, Jiarong?" With a satisfied look, Jiarong walked up and said, "Thanks to Master Zhang and Master Su, and they do it because of you, young Master Yun." Yunxiao kicked him away and asked, "An old martial grandmaster came. Did any of you hurt?" Jiarong's expression changed slightly as he said, "When Hongbing was out there, he already sensed the old man, and he immediately asked everyone to retreat into the pill pagoda. Later on, Qian Duoduo went out to find out the situation, but was seriously wounded by the old man with one move and fled back here. After that, when the old man couldn't find anyone, he destroyed the whole mansion. Yunxiao breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, we suffered almost no casualties. How's Chen Duoduo now? Jia Rong said. Under the arrangement of both masters, he is healing and should be fine. He paused and asked, How did you come in here, young Master Yun? The old man's gone. The old man is dead. Inform Hong Bing and his men to go out and tell them to rebuild my mansion and expand the city. No one will dare to come again anytime soon. By the way, there's someone out there who's seriously injured and is healing. Don't disturb him. After saying that, he disappeared without waiting for Jia Rong's answer, and came inside the cavern beneath Mount Inch. Dead. Jia Rong's eyes widened in shock. He heard from Chen Duoduo that the old man outside was most likely a martial emperor. But he was dead? He could not figure out how that happened. A martial emperor was an awe-inspiring existence even in Firecrow Empire, and yet one had died in Yanwu. How great a storm would this create? Jia Rong could not imagine it. Although he had always had blind faith in Yunxiao, he could not believe that the latter could kill a martial emperor. If this were to spread, the whole Firecrow Empire would be shaken, he reckoned. What he did not know was that the whole Firecrow Empire was already shaken at that moment. As soon as Yunxiao came into the cavern, he felt an aura blow into his face. The dark thunder finally broke through to the 6th tier, and its completely different aura shocked even the other. Shrouded in a wild, violent demonic energy, the beast rubbed its head against Yunxiao's leg like a pet cat. If anyone saw that, his jaw would have dropped in shock. Limited by their bloodlines, demon beasts were generally difficult to break through. But once they did, they went through a certain mutation, and their strength was much greater than the beasts of the same rank. Yunxiao studied it carefully and found that there were faint traces of gold between the Dark Thunder's hair and inside its eyes. It's the light of the king of the demon clan. Yunxiao was taken aback. As he carefully sensed the Dark Thunder's faint golden aura, he cupped his chin and said to himself, One of your ancestors must have bedded with the king of the demon clan, leaving a hidden bloodline in you. After he was sure of that, he also kicked the Dark Thunder away and said, Guard the door for me and don't allow anyone to disturb me. Then he examined Meng Wu's condition. There was nothing unusual with her except that she was in a coma, and her vitality was stronger than that of ordinary people. Looking at her beautiful face, Yunxiao's heart stirred a little. He smiled softly as he took out a large chunk of soul-nourishing wood and began to work. The other people in the cavern came out in shock when they sensed Yunxiao's aura, but they were stopped by the Dark Thunder. When they saw that he was refining something next to Meng Wu, they immediately held their breaths and dared not make a sound to disturb him. Yunxiao held the soul-nourishing wood between his palms and refined it directly. Since all the souls absorbed by the Kunwu divine tree for tens of thousands of years had been used to nourish the tree spirit, the soul-nourishing wood was not pure. What he needed to do was extract a wisp of soul essence from a large amount of soul-nourishing wood to make up for Meng Wu's lost soul. As time went by, more and more waste wood was discarded around him, while a wisp of a pale green soul was constantly condensing in the void. Every piece of soul-nourishing wood could only condense a tiny bit of soul essence, so it took a tremendous amount of hard work to gather them into a wisp. But what rendered everyone speechless was that Yunxiao seemed to have an unlimited supply of soul-nourishing wood, and he kept taking them out. Finally, 2 days later, a wisp of the purest soul essence was condensed, giving off a faint soul power in the air, which made people feel like swallowing it in one gulp. Hee. This is a very nourishing tonic. If an ordinary alchemist swallows it, his soul power can advance 1 tier directly. He was soaked with sweat, but he had the happiest smile on his face. Luo Yunshang, who was watching from the side, suddenly fell into a trance. The flawless smile made her thoughts go back to her memory, and it overlapped with the man in her heart. She was somewhat astounded. Why do so many of Li Yunxiao's casual expressions resemble that man so much? Is it just because he is his disciple? No, that cannot be. She flatly rejected that thought. Although she had not met Gu Feiyang's other disciples, She knew Yang Di, and he was different from Gu Feiyang in every way. But from time to time, Yunxiao gave her the illusion that Gu Feiyang was in front of her. How could there be such a strong sense of similarity? Suddenly, an astonishing thought flashed through her mind, which caused a huge wave in her heart. Is Li Yunxiao Gu Feiyang's son? She stole a glance at Li Changfeng, who stood next to her with a nervous look, and then at Li Chunyang, whose eyes flickered. She could not help but laugh, and she scolded herself in her heart for such a foolish thought. Judging from his appearance, Yunxiao was indeed a descendant of Li Chunyang. But why does he give me such a strong sense of familiarity? Why does he always overlap with Gu Feiyang in my eyes? Looking at Yunxiao's movements, she gradually became a little obsessed. The handsome face was smiling happily, and he was carefully putting the wisp of soul essence into Meng Wu's body. At that moment, a fit of inexpressible jealousy took hold of her. How good would it be if I were lying in that array? She was immediately startled by the thought. Although shocked, she could not help but continue to think. The strong desire to replace Meng Wu spread like poison through her. Even she herself could not believe it, and yet she could not stop it. An obsessed look appeared on her face as she watched Yunxiao's every move in a daze. I'll now teach you a supreme soul cultivation technique. Memorize it. Yunxiao pointed a finger on Meng Wu's forehead and recited slowly. When a man is born, in his first movements is what is called the animal soul. After this has been produced, it is developed into what is called the spirit. By the use of things, the subtle elements are multiplied, and the soul and spirit become strong. They go on in this way, growing in etherealness and brightness, till they become thoroughly spiritual and intelligent. When an ordinary man or woman dies a violent death, the soul and spirit are still able to keep. His words rang in the cavern like the evening drum and morning bell in a monastery. It seemed that he was intending to pass the Tao, for not only he did not conceal it, but his voice went up and echoed throughout the entire Mount Inch. At that moment, all alchemists stopped refining in horror, and each went blank in shock. Very soon, the look on their faces turned into that of wild joy and flushed, as if they had just taken some aphrodisiac and met a peerlessly beautiful girl. A soul cultivation technique. I can't believe this is a soul cultivation technique. Zhang Qingfan stopped working abruptly and murmured in excitement. Then, he quickly forced back his emotions and listened attentively, fearing that he would miss a single word. This is... Jia Rong, who was about to inform Hong Bing, suddenly jumped as if he were electrocuted and cried out in terror. A soul cultivation technique. The voice belongs to young Master Yun. He is teaching us another soul cultivation technique, which is more profound than what he taught me the last time. Luo Yunshang also recovered from her daze, and she listened to every word Yunxiao said in shock. She was also an alchemist, so she naturally knew the value of this. Shocked, she began to listen carefully. Yunxiao spoke for more than an hour before he stopped. Looking at Meng Wu's sleeping face, he sighed softly and said, "By the use of things the subtle elements are multiplied, and the soul and spirit become strong. It's up to you now. Wake up soon, Meng Wu." He sighed and turned away. Just as he turned, a tear ran down Meng Wu's cheek. A moment later, the whole Mount Inch went crazy. Yunxiao had talked for over an hour, but these people felt that it was only a flash. In particular, those who did not understand or remember it were scratching their heads and running about in circles anxiously. Zhang Qingfan and Su Han exchanged a look as they took out paper and pens and began writing silently. After that, they compared their notes and made sure that what they wrote down was correct, and then began to study it together. The result brought by this soul cultivation technique was that the dozens of alchemists in the Mount Inch did not refine a single item for over a month after that, because they were all pondering and meditating, even skipping their meals and drinks. After some time, they all grew extremely skinny. "Where have you been for the last few days, boy?" When Yunxiao walked out of the array, Li Chunyang strode over and threw him an angry punch. "I thought you were dead outside, fuck." It was a punch of concern and love. With a wry smile on his face, Yunxiao puffed out his chest and took the punch. Bam! Li Chunyang was just pretending to hit Yunxiao, so there was not much strength in the punch. But, to his surprise, when his fist smashed the chest, he felt as if he had hit metal. It was knocked back by a great force, which numbed his arm and nearly broke his fingers. What's going on with your body? He was stunned for a moment, and then his pupils constricted abruptly as he cried out in horror. You, am I blind? You are already a one-star martial lord. What? Li Chunyang's shout took everyone in the cavern aback. Xiao Qingwang, Li Chongfeng, Luo Yunshang, Yayan, Ji Meng, and the others gaped, their faces petrified in an instant. In just a little over half a month, he had advanced a major realm. None of the geniuses, from the past to present, could have such incredible speed. There were 9 levels in a realm, and it took everyone present dozens of years to cultivate from a 1-star great martial master to a 1-star martial lord. Among them, Luo Yunshang was the most gifted, but it took even her several years to advance to a martial lord. And that was as she relied on the Xianxia Temple's supreme cultivation technique. But it took Yunxiao only half a month. Everyone had an impulse to slam into the wall and commit suicide. Xiao Qingwang almost burst into tears. During this period, he managed to break through to a 2-stars martial grandmaster because of a large quantity of primordial stones and medicinal pills, and spirit chi that was 100 times richer than outside. He was proud of his achievement, and he thought of showing that off in front of everyone. But, compared to Yunxiao, his rate of progress was rubbish. He went completely crazy and said angrily, "How do you expect us to survive? How do you expect all the geniuses in the world to survive? Fuck, at your rate of progress. None of us can survive in this world. Ha ha. Ha ha ha." After standing in a daze for a while, Li Chongfeng burst out laughing. "Ha ha. You are truly my son. Ha ha ha." Li Chunyang's petrified expression also gradually melted away, replaced by a triumphant look and a big smile. "Those geniuses in the whole heavenly martial continent are nothing in front of my grandson. Ha ha. I'm so happy. I'm fucking happy." Li Chunyang was in a good mood, and he asked, "Yunxiao, how long do you plan to use to advance to a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens realm?" Everyone fainted. Even in all the empires of the south, no one dared to dream of becoming a martial sovereign, let alone someone from the state of Tianshui. Xiao Qingwang was going to rebuke Li Chunyang for daydreaming, but as soon as he saw Yunxiao and sensed the aura of a martial lord in him, he immediately shut his mouth. At such a rate, even if he said he planned to advance to a martial sovereign in a year, they would somewhat believe him. Heaven. What's wrong with the world? Everyone felt they could not think. Yunxiao was taken aback by Li Chunyang's question. He smiled wryly and said, "It's not so easy to become a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens realm. It is all because of a great fated chance that I managed to advance a major realm this time. There's no such good fortune again, and I'll have to advance 1 level at a time." "I see. So, it turns out to be a great fated chance." Everyone breathed a little easier and felt relieved. But even so, they still found it hard to accept. Yunxiao thought for a moment and said, "I can only work hard from now on. Cultivation base cannot be forced, but something to be earned by persistence and hard work. I'll try my best to make a push for the 9 heavens realm in 2 or 3 years from now." Bam! Everyone fainted once again. Xiao Qingwang felt weak all over, and he struggled to the wall in a corner as he kept banging his head against the rock. A few others followed, and for a moment, everyone began to bang their heads against the wall. "Damn it," Xiao Qingwang said bitterly. "If anyone dares to say he is a genius in front of me in the future, I'll definitely force him to eat shit." Paying no more mind to the crowd, Yunxiao went into the depths of the cavern. "I'm going to take a look at Meng Bai. Don't disturb me." He traced Meng Bai's aura and walked a few miles to a cave. The interior of the cave was severely corroded, filled with a rotting stench. Meng Bai was fainted in the middle of the cave, surrounded by a cocoon of white silk. It was not very thick, so his face could still be clearly seen. That surprised Yunxiao. He reached out a finger and touched the cocoon while a tiny green flame immediately appeared and burned a fine silk thread, which turned into a wisp of smoke. He sniffed and said, "Sure enough, the poison has become a cocoon. This heaven-earth venomous body is really amazing." Yun Xiao examined Meng Bai's condition. After finding that he was all right, he smiled and said, "Let me help you speed up a little. I wonder how long this purple 9 neonate flood dragon's blood will keep you asleep." He took out 2 large bottles of scarlet blood and directly poured them into the cocoon. Soon, the white threads were all strained red, and a foul smell spread out in the cave. As soon as the blood came into contact with Meng Bai's body, they began to sizzle and boil, producing bloody bubbles. The whole cave was filled with a poisonous stench, and it was hard to breathe. However, Yun Xiao did not seem to be affected at all. He thought for a moment before leaving the cave. When he left, he placed down several restrictive spells at the cave entrance, preventing anyone from entering. In the Divine Realm tablet, all the natural resources were at his disposal, so the spells he placed down could not be broken even by a martial sovereign. Next, he left the Divine Realm tablet directly. Duan Yu was still regulating his breath outside at the moment. Hong Bing had sent men to guard him, so that no one would disturb him. Although Yun Xiao had ordered the City Lord Mansion to be rebuilt and the city to be expanded, they were not tasks that could be completed in a day. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in the city. The man also sensed Yun Xiao's glance, and he was stunned. He looked at Yun Xiao with shock and extreme disbelief as he froze to the spot. Yun Xiao snorted coldly and said, "Yu Rong, what do you want of me?" The man was Yu Rong, who followed Ding Linger of the Tianyuan Trading Company. The person who destroyed the Xingyang family was the city lord of Yanwu, Li Yunxiao. The news swept through every corner of the Firecrow Empire like the wind. When Ding Linger received the news, she stood blankly for almost 10 minutes, and Yu Rong simply refused to believe it. He had sent his men to find out the truth 3 times, and they came back with the same result each time. It was only then that he was forced to accept it. He was here to invite Yun Xiao for a chat under Ding Linger's command. In the past, the task could be carried out by a mere servant, but Ding Linger had sent him himself this time here. It was plain that her regard for Yun Xiao had been elevated to the highest level. But, when he saw Yun Xiao's cultivation base, he fell in a trance and was a little unsteady on his feet. "Ding Linger invited me for a chat?" Yun Xiao smiled. "My City Lord Mansion was destroyed by a bad guy for no reason, and it takes money to rebuild it. I was worried about where to find the money. Even if Miss Ding doesn't invite me, I plan to visit her as well." Yu Rong almost fainted when he heard that, and he said angrily, "I can't believe you want to cheat money from my trading company again. You are a hungry wolf who can't get enough to eat." Yun Xiao stared at him, and his eyes gradually turned cold, piercing Yu Rong's heart like a sharp blade. It frightened Yu Rong so much that he took a few steps backward and broke out in a cold sweat. Yu Rong was utterly shocked. Even if this boy is amazingly gifted and has broken through to a martial lord, he can't fill my heart with a chill with just a glance. I'm a genuine 8 stars martial king. Staring at him, Yun Xiao said coldly, "It was your young miss who lent me the money, not you, idiot. You have no right to point your finger at me. Also, if it weren't for your stupidity, how could Tianyuan Trading Company have lost twice as much money last time? If you displease me again, ask your young miss to come and see me herself. I've something else to attend to now, so I won't accompany you." Yun Xiao turned and walked away. His commanding attitude left Yu Rong stunned. Suddenly, the latter thought of what Ding Linger had told him before he came, and he immediately caught up with Yun Xiao as he bowed his head and said, "Young Master Yun, I was wrong. My young miss has something important to discuss with you, which will be of great benefit to you as well. Please come with me." He uttered those words with great difficulty, and his face flushed with a hint of shame and indignation. Yun Xiao stopped as he turned to him and said, "An 8 stars martial king is nothing in my eye. If it is not for Ding Linger's sake, do you think an old fool like you can invite me? Ding Linger is so clever. How could she send an idiot like you to invite me?" He shook his head helplessly as he threw out a blue wolf chariot and stepped inside, speeding in the direction of Tianyuan Trading Company. Yu Rong was fuming. He could not believe he had just been mercilessly scolded by a mere 1-star martial lord. Had it not been for the plight of Tianyuan Trading Company, he would have taught Yunxiao a lesson. All he could do now was follow behind the latter with a gloomy face, his eyes burning with rage. Soon they arrived in Xiangyang. After the Xingyang family's incident came to light, the major forces were immediately relieved, and they had withdrawn most of their scouts. When Yunxiao entered the city, he did not discover many powerful divine senses. Due to the gradual decline, the focus of Tianyuan Trading Company had shifted from several other major regions to the south. Although they still had a lot of business elsewhere, they had slowly failed to make ends meet and were losing ground under the fierce attack of other trading companies. Yunxiao turned around at the door and glanced at Yurong, who was following him in silence, as he suddenly said, "You're not convinced, are you?" Yurong's nostrils flared, and he said in a voice thick with hatred, "What do you want? I've been so humble, so what else do you want? You don't have to drive me into the corner." "Drive you into the corner? Who do you think you are?" Yunxiao sneered. "Old man, don't take yourself too seriously. I haven't had a good impression of you since I first met you, because you are not only weak, but also stupid. If you were willing to help me that day, you could at least save your trading company millions of resources. It can be seen that it is your unswerving loyalty that keeps you close to Ding Linger." Yurong could not bear it anymore, and he said furiously, "Who do you think you are to comment on me like that? Humph, I'm stupid? Do you think you are very clever? Everyone knows you have destroyed the Xingyang family now, and I think your Yanwu will not last for too long." Yunxiao gave him a hopeless look and said, "I'm in a good mood now, so I'll say a few more words to you. If what you said is true, Ding Linger should keep a distance from me. Why is she inviting me now? This?" Yurong was taken aback, and he fell into thoughts. Yunxiao looked at him as if he were an idiot and said, "You should know better than me about the situation of Tianyuan Trading Company. The reason why Ding Linger kept aiding me is that she takes me as her lifeline. And the purpose she invited me for a chat this time, if I'm not mistaken, is that she has decided to put all her bets on me after what happened to the Xingyang family." Yurong's pupils constricted and he looked incredulous. He could not guess Ding Linger's thoughts, and what happened recently perplexed him. Now that Yunxiao pointed it out to him, he felt enlightened. With a faint smile, Yunxiao said, "Even a little girl has such vision and courage, but you, at such an old age, are still stupid as a pig. I ask you for money because I think highly of you. If I turn around and leave now, Ding Linger will be in Yanwu the next moment and be at my mercy. Do you believe it or not? Believe it or not?" Yurong was struck dumb. Believing it or not, he dared not try. If it were true as Yunxiao said, then Ding Linger might really be putting all her bets on this mysterious teenager. Yunxiao was absolutely right. He was where he was today because of his unswerving loyalty, and he was Ding Linger's most trusted man. Moreover, he was a senior who had watched her grow up, and he doted on her like his own daughter. Ever since Tianyuan Trading Company was in trouble, she had been getting thinner and thinner, which made Yurong worried. But his ability was limited and he could not help much. Previously, he had offended Yunxiao and caused the company to lose more money. That had made him extremely regretful, and he just wished he could kill Yunxiao. Yunxiao said lightly, "What I need from your company are just some primordial stones and resources, which Myriad Treasure Store can provide me as well. But what you need from me is something that will determine the survival of your company. All this time, I'm not taking advantage of you, but you are waiting for me to save your life. I hope you can understand this. I don't want to find you an eyesore in the future, because I may be upset by you and decide not to help your company." "What do you think Ding Linger will do then?" Yurong completely froze in place, his heart racing as beads of sweat trickled down his forehead. If it were because of him that Ding Linger's plan was ruined, then Tianyuan Trading Company was already swaying in a storm now, and he could not imagine the consequences. Young Master Yun is absolutely right. Sir Yu, the next time you see young Master Yun, it will be like seeing me. Ding Linger's voice came from inside. Soon, a beautiful figure clad in a yellow dress appeared in front of the door, showing a sweet smile. Young Master Yun is a peerless genius. You won't be upset by such a trifling matter and then leave me aside to die by myself, will you? Yunxiao's eyes lit up, and he said, "Miss Linger's smile is SP charming that it melted away all my unpleasant feelings. How would I turn down the request of such a beautiful girl?" They looked at each other and smiled. Then, like a pair of old friends who had not met each other for a long time, they chatted happily and walked inside. As he stood in place, Yurong's face was ashen. At that moment, he finally realized how stupid and reckless he was. But what upset him was that Ding Linger had to clean up the mess he had made. For a moment, he looked as if he were decades older and somewhat dispirited. Tea and snacks were quickly brought up. Ding Linger sniffed and felt refreshed, and then she said, "This is the best iced tea from my father's collection, which is harvested from the depths of an ice mountain in the east. Under the extremely cold temperature, time seems to be frozen. No one knows how many years those tea trees have grown for, but they had only sprouted 2 tender shoots. It is definitely the best of the best. I wonder if it suits your taste, young Master Yun." Yun Xiao took a small sip. It was indeed smooth and refreshing, and even contained a wisp of spirit qi, giving him indescribable comfort and enjoyment. Even his spirit was lifted as his eyes gleamed with surprise, and he said, "It's indeed a supreme grade tea. I fear there are not many tea leaves in the world that can compare with it." But, with a faint smile on his face, he sniffed playfully and sighed with enjoyment as he said, "The tea is fragrant, but the person is even more fragrant." Ding Linger's face turned red slightly. Although she had been in the business world for many years and had seen all kinds of people, she was still just a young girl with thin skin, and she could not help but feel shy. For a moment, the atmosphere in the hall became a little ambiguous. She quickly changed the topic. "Young Master Yun, you said there are not many tea leaves comparable to it in the world, which really makes me curious. As far as I know, this iced tea is already the best tea in the world. My father had a passion for tea, but he had never heard of anything comparable to it." She was really curious. Although Tianyuan Trading Company began to decline, her father never made do with his pursuit of tea. He would get a share of all the tea he could get in the whole Commerce Alliance, but there was never anything like this rare iced tea. Just the box containing the tea leaves was made of 10,000-year-old ice, which would never melt. Only in this way could the fragrance and quality of tea be preserved. Yun Xiao chuckled as he put down his teacup and said, "As far as I can remember, there are at least 3 kinds of tea that can compete with this iced tea." He glanced at Ding Linger, who was full of disbelief, and said with a smile, "In the city of Red Moon, there is an extremely mysterious blood tea. It is shaped like a crescent moon and scarlet in color, like a drop of human blood. Moreover, it also smells of blood. When brewed with the underground water taken from beneath Red Moon, the tea looks like human blood and tastes like the sweetest dew. It is really a supreme grade tea and can rival this iced tea." There was a trace of fear on Ding Linger's face as she said, "The tea looks like human blood? This? How can one drink it? I dare not drink such a tea, however good it is." Yun Xiao smiled. There was something even more terrifying that he did not say, which was, the tea must be watered with human blood before it could grow. Moreover, if the blood used to water the tea tree were from warriors with stronger cultivation bases, the quality of the tea would be better. At first, he did not know about that, and he drank the tea for a few days. But when he learned it later on, he vomited and never dared to try again. But, in terms of quality alone, it was by no means under this iced tea. The second kind of tea can be found in the minor spirit heaven within the heaven library realm. It is a kind of green tea called evergreen. The tea trees have lived for hundreds of thousands of years and absorbed the primordial qi from the spirit veins in the world. They are a kind of precious plant by themselves. When brewed with divine water, the tea can increase one's cultivation base and nourish one's flesh and soul. It is also a supreme grade tea. The heaven library realm, evergreen. Ding Linger was taken aback, and she said in horror, "Have young Master Yun ever been to the heaven library realm? How is this possible?" Yun Xiao laughed and said, "I've just heard about it." Ding Linger looked suspiciously at him. His face, full of memories, did not look as if he had just heard it from someone. But she did not believe he went to the heaven library realm either. She felt strange. The blood tea in the Red Moon City he mentioned just now was definitely not something that common people could get in touch with either. Even her father, who had a passion for tea, had never mentioned it before. What about the third kind of tea? Since young Master Yun leaves it to the last, could its quality be better than the evergreen? She asked while suppressing the doubts in her mind. Yunxiao's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he were hesitating. But he then said, "The last kind of tea does not exist on the heavenly martial continent." It doesn't exist on the heavenly martial continent? That gave Ding Linger a pause, and then she blurted out, "Could it be in the sea?" The 4 seas are many times wider than the whole heavenly martial continent, and they should be able to produce at least 1 to 2 kinds of supreme-grade tea leaves. Yunxiao laughed and said, "I don't know if there are any supreme-grade tea leaves in the 4 seas, but the third kind of tea I want to mention doesn't come from the 4 seas, but from the starry sky. It is right above the sky and born under the power of the sun, the moon, and the stars. No one knows how long it has existed for, and it is surrounded by spatial turbulences, making it extremely difficult to harvest. In the whole heavenly martial continent, I fear only the divine city of the Holy Realm has this kind of starry sky ancient tea." Starry sky ancient tea. Ding Linger was dazed, and she could not help but murmur, "Red moon blood tea evergreen, starry sky ancient tea." My father had never mentioned them before. If there are really such extraordinary teas in the world, I wish I can harvest some and give them to my father. When she heard the blood tea, she was skeptical and thought Yunxiao was making it up. But, as she continued to listen, although the second and third teas were even more bizarre, she began to believe in them and was even fascinated by them. Her father loved tea, and it would be nice if he could taste these 3 kinds of peerless tea. Yunxiao said, "Miss Linger's love toward your father is commendable. I believe you can realize this dream in the future." Ding Linger glanced at Yunxiao. The more she looked at him, the more mysterious and extraordinary she found him to be. Ignoring others, just his rate of progress was unheard of. In the beginning, she thought Yunxiao had used some kind of mystic arts or drugs to increase his cultivation base, and that would definitely bring him a lot of trouble in the future. But now, through careful observation, she found that the essence of the 4 quadrants emitted from him was more profound than hers. That immediately dispelled all her doubts and strengthened her plan. "After listening to what you said, I realized that I was a frog in the bottom of a well. Young Master Yun, I really admire your vast knowledge. The reason I invited you here is that I have something important to discuss with you." She finally gets to the point. Yunxiao sipped his tea in silence and showed a listening look. Ding Linger smiled wryly in her heart. Why does this young man look shrewder than those 100-year-old sly old foxes? Since young Master Yun knows about the Heaven Library realm, I wonder if you have ever heard of another place that is comparable to it in the south of the heavenly martial continent. Yunxiao's expression remained unchanged as he slowly put down his teacup and said, "Miss Linger, do you mean Mount Meru?"